The ocean is as mysterious as it is infinite. Beneath its waves hide stories that defy explanation, true stories that will make you question what we really know about the depths. Like underwater ruins so precise that they cannot be natural, ships that disappeared without a trace, without even a whisper, and the deepest blue hole in the ocean, a place so dark and unexplored that we have barely begun to scratch the surface of what is down there. They are not legends or myths. They are real, and they all remain unresolved. So get comfortable, prepare a snack, and join me on this dive into the unknown. The further we go, the stranger it gets. Let's start. Our stories today begin in 1986, when a local diver exploring the coast of Japan came across something unexplainable. Huge stone structures that lay silently on the ocean floor. At first, they looked like the ruins of an ancient civilization, but experts disagreed. Were they natural formations shaped by the sea, or evidence of a lost chapter in human history? This is the story of the Yonaguni Monument, one of the most fascinating underwater mysteries ever discovered. The story of the Yonaguni Monument begins in a place as serene as it is remote, the waters off the island of Yonaguni, in the Okinawa Prefecture. Yonaguni is the kind of place where the modern world seems very far away, surrounded by turquoise waters and rugged cliffs. It is the last inhabited island of Japan before reaching Taiwan, a place where the pace of life slows and the ocean stretches infinitely toward the horizon. But beneath the surface of these tranquil waters lies a mystery that has baffled scientists and explorers for decades. It all began in 1986, when Kihachiro Aratake, a local tour operator specializing in diving, was looking for new underwater sites to attract tourists. The crystal-clear waters and vibrant coral reefs of Yonaguni were already a paradise for divers. But Aratake wanted to find something unique, something that would differentiate Yonaguni. One afternoon, while diving off the south coast of the island, something caught his attention. At first, it was just a shadow, a darker spot on the seabed. Intrigued, he swam closer and, as he descended, the shadow grew larger, much larger. What he saw next left him paralyzed. Emerging from the seabed was a structure unlike anything he had ever seen before. Huge, angular, and strangely symmetrical, it looked more like the ruins of an ancient city than a natural rock formation. Before continuing with this story, a quick note. The images in today's video are a little scarcer than usual. This story and the others that we will explore have required a lot of research, editing, and recording time. So feel free to take it as a compliment while you work, continue with your day-to-day, or simply relax and let your mind wander through these incredible mysteries. The images add context, but are not essential to enjoy the trip. Thank you for being here, and now let's get back to the story. As Kimura explored more, he noticed features that seemed deliberately created. There were what appeared to be wide staircases leading to elevated platforms, corridors carved into the rock, and even holes that looked like doors or windows. One section of the structure, known as the Turtle, looked like a giant sculpture of a sea turtle resting on a pedestal. Kimura became convinced that these features were artificial, created by a civilization prior to recorded history. But here the problem is that the structure was submerged more than 30 meters underwater to have been above sea level. Kimura estimated that it would have to go back at least 10,000 years, to a time when sea level was significantly lower due to Ice Age glaciation. If this were true, the Yonaguni Monument would be one of the oldest man-made structures on Earth, which could rewrite the chronology of human civilization. Kimura spent years studying the site, and, with each dive, he found more evidence to support his theory. He discovered what appeared to be stone tools embedded in the seabed near the monument, suggesting that humans had worked on the structure. He even claimed to have found symbols carved into the rock that could be remnants of an ancient writing. For Kimura, the monument was not just a whim of nature, but the proof of an advanced culture that thrived long before the civilizations we know today. But not everyone agreed. As news of the Yonaguni Monument spread, skeptics began to weigh in. Many geologists argued that the structure could be explained by natural processes. Sandstone, the main material of Yonaguni, is known to fracture in straight lines when exposed to certain types of erosion. Underwater currents, combined with the natural movement of tectonic plates, could have created the terraces and sharp angles that made the monument so striking. Robert Schull, a geologist at the University of Boston, was one of the most vehement critics. Schull traveled to Yonaguni and dived at the site, but was not convinced. Although he admitted that some features were unusual, he argued that most of the structure could be explained by natural erosion. In his opinion, there was not enough evidence to conclude that humans had shaped the monument. The debate about Yonaguni quickly became polarized. On the one hand, Kimura and his followers argued that the precision and complexity of the structure was too intentional to be natural. On the other hand, skeptics insisted that, without definitive artifacts such as ceramics or tools, the monument could not be conclusively linked to human activity. Both sides presented compelling arguments, and the mystery of Yonaguni only deepened. For divers, the monument became a must-see destination, a place where one could witness the intersection of history and nature, swimming through the underwater labyrinth surrounded by schools of fish and the haunting silence of the depths. It was impossible not to feel a sense of a wee relic of a forgotten civilization or a masterpiece of natural geology. The Yonaguni Monument continues to baffle all who visit it. The Yonaguni Monument became a focus of debate among scientists, historians, and explorers. On one hand were those like Masaki Kimura, who firmly believed that the monument was proof of a lost civilization, a relic of an era so ancient it defied traditional timelines of human development. On the other side were the skeptics, mainly geologists, who saw the structure as an extraordinary but totally natural formation, shaped by erosion and the ocean's relentless forces. Kimura's theory was bold. He argued that the monument was not only a singular structure, but part of a much larger complex. This included roads, smaller buildings, and even what he believed to be ceremonial elements, such as a stone altar. According to Kimura, the Yonaguni Monument could date back 10,000 years, potentially even older than the pyramids of Egypt or Stonehenge. This theory was tempting, since, if true, it would suggest that an advanced culture existed in this part of the world at a time when most human societies were believed to be simple hunter-gatherers. Kimura was not without evidence. Over the years, he claimed to have found stone tools and what he believed were engravings near the monument, including symbols carved into the rock. He even suggested that some features of the monument, such as the turtle formation, were sculptures deliberately carved to resemble animals or symbols important to the builders. For Kimura, these findings pointed to a human touch, proof that the structure was not simply a quirk of nature. But the skeptics strongly opposed it. Robert Schoch, a well-known geologist from Boston University, became one of the most vocal opponents of the theory that it was the work of man. After diving off Yonaguni, Schoch concluded that the characteristics of the monument could be explained by natural geological processes. Sandstone, the material that makes up the Yonaguni Monument, is prone to fracturing in straight lines, especially when subjected to tectonic activity and strong underwater currents. Over time, these forces could create flat terraces, sharp edges, and even steps that appeared intentional, but were entirely natural. Schoch was not the only skeptic. Many geologists pointed out that there were similar formations around the world created by nature. The Giant's Causeway in Ireland, for example, is a series of perfectly hexagonal basalt columns formed by volcanic activity, while the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, a series of rectangular limestone blocks, was initially thought to be a man-made road, but was later attributed to natural erosion. One of the main issues for skeptics was the lack of definitive artifacts for a site to be considered artificial. There needs to be clear evidence of human activity, such as ceramic tools or other cultural artifacts, while Kimura claimed to have found stone tools near the monument. Critics argued that these could have been washed into the area by ocean currents and did not necessarily prove that humans had worked on the structure. The debate was not only about Yonaguni, but about how we interpret evidence of ancient civilizations. Kimura and his followers saw the monument as an opportunity to question conventional timelines and explore the possibility that advanced societies existed long before we thought. The skeptics, for their part, warned against jumping to conclusions without concrete evidence. For them, the Yonaguni Monument was a fascinating natural formation, but nothing more. If the Yonaguni Monument is the work of man, a tempting question arises: who built it, and why? Kamimura speculated that it could be related to the lost continent of Mu, a mythical landmass said to have sunk beneath the Pacific Ocean thousands of years ago. Although there is no scientific evidence to support the existence of Mu, the idea of a submerged civilization resonates in legends around the world, from Atlantis in the west to Lemuria in the east. Kamimura's theory suggested that Yonaguni could have been a cultural and religious center for an ancient people, a place where rituals were celebrated and knowledge passed down. The step design and terrace-like features of the monument reminded him of the ziggurats and pyramids found in other ancient cultures. If true, it could mean that the history of humanity is much older and more complex than we currently believe. However, skeptics pointed out that the step design and terrace-like features of the monument resembled the ziggurats and pyramids of other ancient cultures. If true, it could mean that the history of humanity is much older and more complex than we currently believe. However, skeptics pointed out a major flaw in this theory. There is no direct connection between Yonaguni and any known civilization. Unlike sites like Machu Picchu or the Great Pyramid of Giza, which are surrounded by cultural artifacts and written records, the Yonaguni Monument exists in isolation. There are no tools, no pottery, no ruins of nearby villages, nothing that definitively links it to the hand of man. There is also the question of its age. Kamimura estimated that the monument could be more than 10,000 years old based on the time it would have taken for rising sea levels to submerge it. But skeptics argue that dating a site based on sea level changes is, at best, complicated, since without physical evidence such as carbon-dated artifacts, it is impossible to determine with certainty. Despite the lack of consensus, Yonaguni continues to capture the imagination of people around the world. It's not just a matter of geology or archaeology, it's a matter of what we're willing to believe. The idea of a lost civilization that built monumental structures only to be swallowed by the sea is undeniably fascinating. It appeals to our fascination with the unknown, our desire to discover secrets hidden beneath the surface. Even if the monument is natural, it is a masterpiece of nature, a reminder of how powerful and creative the forces of the earth can be. The straight lines, the terraces, the sharp angles. These features may be the result of erosion and tectonic activity, but they seem deliberate, almost like a work of art standing in the sea. Surrounded by the imposing walls and platforms of the monuments, it is easy to understand why so many divers have been captivated by its mystery. In the end, the Yonaguni Monument remains an enigma. Is it a forgotten relic of an ancient world, a testament to human ingenuity lost in time, or is it a natural wonder shaped by the ocean's relentless hand over millennia? The answer, for now, lies somewhere beneath the waves, waiting to be discovered. The mystery of the Yonaguni Monument leaves us with more questions than answers. Is it the work of an ancient civilization or simply a masterpiece of nature? In any case, it is a story that reminds us how much remains to be explored in our world and how many secrets are still hidden beneath the surface. What do you think? Is it the work of man or nature? Leave your opinion for me in the comments. Let's move now to the next story. Story 2. The Disappearance of the MV, Music Joa, from the submerged mysteries of the Yonaguni Monument, where ancient secrets lie carved under the waves. We now move to the open waters of the Pacific, where an enigma of a completely different type unfolded. It is the story of the MV Joa, a ship that disappeared without a trace and reappeared weeks later abandoned and shrouded in questions. What happened to its passengers and crew? Why was the ship adrift kilometers off course? What clues did this ghost ship leave behind? Let's dive into the disturbing mystery of the MV Joa. In October 1955, the MV Joa set sail from Samoa on what should have been a routine voyage. The ship, which was once a luxurious private yacht, had become a reliable workhorse in the South Pacific, transporting passengers and cargo between islands. But when the Joyita did not reach its destination, a large-scale search was launched. Weeks later, the ship was found adrift more than 600 miles from its course, with no crew, no passengers, and no explanation whatsoever. What happened aboard the MV Ida? Why did its crew disappear, and why was the ship left adrift like a ghost? This is the disturbing mystery of the why. In the early 1950s, the South Pacific was a world apart, vast, remote, and dotted with small islands connected by trade routes that spanned thousands of kilometers of open ocean. For the people who lived in these isolated communities, the sea was not only a lifeline, it was their highway, their livelihood, and sometimes their greatest threat. In the midst of this blue expanse was the MV Joa, a ship with a legendary past. Originally built in 1931 as a luxurious private yacht for a Hollywood director, the Joyita, which means little jewel in Spanish, had once been the epitome of glamour, but by the 1940s its glory days were over. During World War II, the ship was converted into a military patrol boat for the United States Navy and was later sold to private owners, who transformed it into a modest but reliable merchant vessel. It was no longer flashy, but it had a reputation for being a sturdy and seaworthy vessel. In 1955, the Joa was owned by Captain Thomas Dusty Miller, an experienced British sailor who had spent decades sailing the Pacific. He was well known and respected in the region, a man with a deep knowledge of the dangers of the ocean and its capricious moods. If anyone could safely pilot a ship through these waters, it was Captain Miller. On October 3, 1955, the Joyita set sail from the port of Apia, in Samoa, bound for the Tokala Islands, about 270 kilometers to the north. It was a routine trip that should not have lasted more than 2 days. On board were 25 people, including 9 crew members, 16 passengers, and a cargo of medical supplies, food, wood, and other goods for the remote islands. Among the passengers was Dr. Alfred Dennis, a respected doctor who was traveling to Tokala to perform an operation. His presence was proof of the importance of the trip for such remote communities, where access to medical care was scarce and often a matter of life or death. The mood was good when the Joa set sail from Apia. The weather was calm, the sea was calm, and there was no indication that anything could go wrong. But as the hours turned into days, something strange happened. The Joa did not arrive in Tokala. At first, radio operators assumed that the ship had been delayed, perhaps due to a mechanical problem or a minor navigation error. Delays were not uncommon in the South Pacific, where unexpected problems could add hours or even days to a trip. However, on the 3rd day, concern began to increase. The ship's radio had stopped working, and there was still no sign of the Joa. The news spread quickly, and a large-scale search was soon launched. Planes and ships tracked the route between Moa and Tokala, covering thousands of square kilometers of open ocean, but found nothing. No debris, no distress signals, no trace of the Joa. It was as if the ship had disappeared, swallowed by the immensity of the Pacific. 5 weeks later, on November 10, 1955, the mystery took a chilling turn. A merchant ship sailing the waters near Fiji spotted something unusual in the distance. At first, it looked like a bland piece of wood, a dark shape swaying on the waves, but as the crew got closer, they realized it was a ship. The missing Joa, adrift and abandoned more than 600 miles from its intended route. The place was disturbing. The Joa, which was once considered unsinkable, was leaning heavily to one side with the deck partially submerged, but despite the damage, the ship was still afloat, a testament to its sturdy cedarwood construction. But where were the crew and passengers? The ship was eerily silent, with no signs of life on board. When the rescuers boarded, the scene they found was even more disturbing. The Joa looked like a ghost ship. Its interior was in disarray, with cargo scattered everywhere, boxes of medical supplies open, and blood-stained bandages on the deck. But there was no explanation for their use. The lifeboats and life rafts were missing, along with the personal effects and the ship's navigation equipment in the main cabin. The ship's radio was tuned to the international distress frequency, but the antenna was broken, rendering it useless. Rescuers noted that the radio would have had a range of only 2 miles in its damaged state, making it impossible to call for help. To add mystery, the clock in the cabin had stopped at 10:25, as if marking the exact moment when something terrible happened. The engines of the Hoda were another enigma. The main engine did not work, and the auxiliary engine, a smaller backup engine, was covered with blankets, which suggests that someone had tried to protect it from damage. However, the ship was still seaworthy despite its list. It was not sinking, and there was no immediate danger to those on board, so why had the crew and passengers abandoned it? The ship's records were missing, as well as any document that could shed light on what happened. The rescuers had only fragments of a story: an empty ship, signs of a hasty departure, and no indication of where the crew and passengers had gone. As the Joyita was towed back to port, the questions only deepened. What had led the crew to abandon a ship that was still afloat? Why had they taken the lifeboats but left behind vital supplies, like food and water? And why was the ship so far off course, adrift in the middle of the Pacific? The discovery of the MV Joyita left the researchers with a cascade of mysteries. Not only the disturbing image of an empty ship adrift, but countless unanswered questions. What could have led 25 people to abandon a seaworthy ship? And why did they disappear without a trace? One of the main theories focuses on mechanical failure. The Joyita was far from perfect when it set sail from Samoa. The ship's main engine was known for its unreliability, and some reports suggest that a leaking pipe caused water to accumulate in the hull, creating the appearance that the ship was sinking. In a moment of panic, the crew may have believed that the Joyita was about to sink, which led them to abandon ship. But here's the problem. The Joyita was not sinking. Its robust cedarwood construction made it very buoyant, even in a damaged state. Abandoning a ship like that would have been the last resort. Yet the lifeboats had disappeared, suggesting that the crew had no intention of staying on board. Another compelling theory is that the crew misjudged the situation. The South Pacific is known for its strong, unpredictable currents, and if the Joyita had been taking on water, even temporarily, the angle of inclination could have convinced the crew that it was doomed. But why were the lifeboats not found? Did they drift too far from the search area? Or was there something else, something more sinister, that prevented anyone from surviving? Then, the possibility of a criminal act? The cargo of the Joyita included medical supplies and other valuable goods that could have made a target for pirates. The waters of the South Pacific were not a lawless sea, but piracy was not unknown in the 1950s. Could the crew and passengers have been attacked, thrown overboard, or taken hostage? This theory gains strength when taking into account the missing personal effects and navigation equipment. If pirates boarded the ship, they could have taken everything of value before abandoning it. But no evidence of fighting was found, so piracy remains, at best, speculation. One of the most chilling theories involves a rogue wave, a sudden and enormous wall of water capable of capsizing ships. Rogue waves are rare but devastating, and some believe that a wave could have hit the Joyita, flooding the deck and forcing the crew to evacuate, but the ship was still afloat when it was found, which complicates this explanation. Why abandon a ship that was clearly capable of surviving such an event? And then there are the stranger ideas. Some have suggested that the crew might have found something inexplicable, a phenomenon so terrifying that they felt compelled to flee. Stories of ghost ships and sea monsters have haunted maritime tradition for centuries, and although there is no evidence to support such theories, they speak to the enduring fear of the unknown. The Pacific Ocean is vast and mysterious, and the idea that the Joyita could have found something beyond our understanding is not entirely dismissible. Finally, there is the disturbing possibility that we will never know what happened. The ocean is a relentless place, and its ability to erase evidence is unmatched. Whether the crew succumbed to dehydration, storms, or even internal conflicts, the lack of physical evidence leaves us with nothing more than speculation. The Joyita, like so many other ghost ships before it, carries its secret to this day. The story of the MV Joyita did not end with its discovery. In fact, its legacy deepened when the ship was salvaged and returned to service. But for many, The Geida was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol of maritime mystery, a ship that seemed cursed by its own unanswered questions. After being repaired, the Geida was put back into operation, but its reputation preceded it. Sailors were reluctant to crew the ship, convinced that it was haunted by the spirits of its missing passengers. Some claimed to hear strange noises coming from the hull or feel an unsettling presence when they were on board. Whether these accounts were authentic or simply fueled by the ship's disturbing history, they added another layer of intrigue to the story of the Geida. The ship ended up falling into disrepair and was abandoned once again, this time intentionally left to its fate. The Geida became a relic of its own mystery, a physical reminder of the day it was found adrift in the Pacific, empty and inexplicable. But the legacy of the Geida is not only its disturbing presence, but also a reminder of the immensity and unpredictability of the sea. Even in an era of advanced technology and modern navigation, the ocean remains a place where mysteries unfold, where entire ships can disappear, and where answers are often beyond the reach of historians and maritime enthusiasts. The Geida is a case study of the unknown, a story that challenges our understanding of human behavior, mechanical failures, and the raw power of nature. How do you explain a ship that was still afloat, but completely abandoned? How do you explain the disappearance of 25 people who vanished without a trace? And how to reconcile the disturbing details? The stopped clock, the bloodstains, the missing equipment, with the absence of definitive answers for the people of the South Pacific. The Geida is more than a mystery. It is a story with a moral, a story of how even routine trips can take an inexplicable turn, a reminder that you have to respect the sea, recognize its power and its capacity to keep its secrets. And thus, the Geida remains one of the most lasting enigmas of the ocean. Its history has inspired countless theories, sparked debates among experts, and captured the imagination of those who dare to wonder what really happened that fateful day in 1955. But, like all great mysteries, the story of the Geida is as much about what we don't know as about what we do know. As the ship fades into history, its legacy lives on as a ghost ship that continues to haunt the waters of the Pacific, a vessel forever linked to the mysteries of the depths. The MV Geida may have been abandoned, but its story will never be unforgettable. Story 3. The Mystery of the Challenger. Music in the depths. The ghostly story of the MV Geida reminds us how little we know about the ocean, even on the surface. But what about the places far below, where daylight has never reached and where mysteries take on a different dimension? One such place is in the Western Pacific, a realm so extreme and remote that only a few humans have dared to venture there. It is the Challenger Deep, the deepest known point in the ocean, located within the Mariana Trench, but the story does not end with the depth. The Challenger Deep is surrounded by mysteries that have baffled scientists for decades, including unexplained sounds recorded in the Mariana Trench, sounds that hint something strange lurks in the abyss. Dive into the unfathomable depths of the Challenger Deep and the haunting enigma of the trench itself. The ocean is vast and covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface, but its greatest secrets lie within the depths. The Challenger Deep, as the deepest point on Earth, sinks almost 7 miles below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, deeper than the height of Mount Everest. It is a place so hostile and remote that we have explored it less than we have the surface of the moon. But what is at the bottom of this abyss? What thrives in a world where temperatures hover around 0 degrees? The pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than at sea level, and the darkness is eternal. And then there are the strange sounds, recordings of unexplained noises emanating from the Mariana Trench. Are they natural phenomena, or do they point to something that we still cannot understand? This is the story of the Challenger Deep and the Mariana Trench, a journey to the last frontier on Earth. The Challenger Deep is located at the southern end of the Mariana Trench, a place so remote and mysterious that for centuries it was just a blank spot on our maps. Nearly 1,500 miles long and almost 36,000 feet deep, The trench represents one of the most extreme environments on Earth. It is a place where the crushing pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than at sea level, temperatures hover around 0 degrees, and sunlight never penetrates. It is the oceanic version of outer space, a hostile and alien world where life should not exist, and yet somehow manages to thrive. To understand the depth of the Challenger Deep, let's put it in perspective. At its deepest point, it is almost 7 miles below the surface of the ocean, deeper than the height of Mount Everest by more than a mile. Imagine being on top of Everest, contemplating the world that stretches out at your feet, and then imagine sinking all that distance into the cold, dark ocean. That is the Challenger Deep. The trench itself is a product of tectonic forces, where the Pacific Plate slowly slides under the smaller Mariana Plate in a process known as subduction. This geological collision creates a deep scar in the Earth's crust, a trench that forms the boundary between two titanic plates of rock. However, although scientists have studied the formation of the trench and its overall structure, the Challenger Deep remains one of the least explored places on the planet. It was not until relatively recently in human history that we even knew of the Challenger Deep's existence. The trench was first identified in 1875 during the voyage of the HMS Challenger, a British research vessel tasked with exploring the world's oceans. Using a weighted rope, the crew measured the depth of the trench and found it to be much deeper than any other they had encountered before. This discovery marked the beginning of our fascination with the Mariana Trench and its deepest point, which would eventually be named after the ship that first measured it. However, although we have mapped and plotted the Challenger Deep, exploring it has proven far more difficult. The conditions down there are so extreme that even the most advanced technology struggles to withstand the crushing pressure. For decades, the Challenger Deep existed more as a concept than as a physical place, a theoretical point so remote and hostile that it seemed almost untouchable. All that changed in 1960 when two men, Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh, decided to go where no one had gone before. In 1960, aboard the Batisca Trieste, Piccard and Walsh embarked on a journey that would make history. The Trieste was not just any ship, but had been built specifically for the exploration of the deep sea. It was, in essence, a metal sphere coated by a steel and gasoline hull, designed to withstand the unimaginable pressure of the ocean's depths. The sphere only had enough space for 2 people, and its interior was narrow, claustrophobic, and dimly lit. Every centimeter of the ship was designed to withstand more than 16,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, the kind of force that would crush a human body instantly. The descent began just after dawn, when the Trieste sank below the surface. The outside world became increasingly dark until the windows revealed nothing but total darkness. When they reached the midnight zone, about 3,000 feet deep, all sunlight had disappeared, replaced by an unsettling void. The only light came from bioluminescent creatures that floated in front of the window, whose bright bodies created a surreal and otherworldly spectacle. But the deeper they went, the less life they found. At about 30,000 feet, the walls of the Trieste began to creak and groan under the immense pressure. For Piccard and Walsh, the sounds were unsettling, a constant reminder of how fragile their vessel was against the crushing force of the ocean depths. Despite the risks, they continued to descend toward the abyss. After almost 5 hours, they reached their goal at 35,814 feet in the deepest point of the Earth, a place where no human being had ever set foot. Outside the window, the seabed was flat and featureless, a barren and arid extension of sediments and clay. The pressure was so intense that it compressed the water, making it denser than at the surface. The 2 men spent only 20 minutes at the bottom, gazing into the void. To their surprise, they saw what appeared to be a flatfish swimming along the seabed. This discovery was revolutionary, since it suggested that life could exist in one of the most extreme environments on the planet. But with the oxygen running low and the risks increasing, they had to begin the ascent. The success of the Trieste mission was a monumental achievement, but it also highlighted how little we knew about the ocean depths. The Challenger Deep remained largely unexplored for decades, visited only by robotic probes and unmanned vehicles, until 2012, more than 50 years later, when the filmmaker James Cameron made his own descent to the Challenger Deep aboard the Deep-Sea Challenger. Cameron's mission was as much scientific as it was to tell stories. He spent hours at the bottom capturing images of the seabed and collecting samples for scientific analysis. Unlike Pierce and Walsh, who had to rely solely on observation from a ship, Cameron had high-tech cameras and advanced sensors that allowed him to document the alien world of the Challenger Deep in great detail. What he found was fascinating and humbling. The seabed teemed with strange translucent creatures, sea cucumbers, amphipods, and microbial layers that had adapted to the extreme conditions of the trench. These organisms thrive in total darkness and survive thanks to chemical reactions instead of sunlight. For Cameron, the experience was transformative, a reminder of how little we know about the ocean and its hidden depths. But even with these advances, the Challenger Deep remains one of the least explored places on Earth. Less than 5% of the world's oceans have been mapped in detail, and the Challenger Deep is no exception. Its inaccessibility, combined with the immense cost and complexity of deep-sea exploration, means that much of its history remains untold. What is hidden in its unexplored crevices? Are there life forms waiting to be discovered, or geological phenomena that could change our understanding of the planet? For now, the Challenger Deep remains a frontier, a place where science and mystery coexist in perfect harmony. The Challenger Deep is a clear reminder of how much remains to be explored on our planet, a world that is dark, strange, and infinitely mysterious. But the Challenger Deep is only a part of the Mariana Trench, a place where the limits of human knowledge are constantly tested. Extending more than 1,500 miles along the western Pacific, the trench is a vast shadowy canyon full of extremes, crushing pressure, frigid temperatures, and geological phenomena that defy understanding. However, despite its harshness, the trench has not been silent recently. Scientists have captured a series of disturbing sounds emanating from its depths. These recordings range from the faint creaks of moving tectonic plates to the unearthly sounds of whales and hums that seem to defy all explanation. What is the cause of these sounds? Are they natural phenomena, or could they indicate something much stranger? Leaving the Challenger Deep behind, let's focus our attention on the mysterious acoustics of the Mariana Trench and the strange signals that have baffled scientists and unleashed endless debate. The Mariana Trench is the deepest oceanic trench on Earth, a place where the rules of the natural world seem to bend. Its immense depth is only comparable by its inaccessibility. The trench is so remote that even reaching its upper layers requires weeks of travel by boat. What lies beneath is a world of extremes shaped by immense geological forces. The trench is the direct result of plate tectonics, where the Pacific Plate is pushed under the Mariana Plate. This process, known as subduction, creates intense seismic activity, underwater volcanoes, and huge hydrothermal vents that spew superheated water into the abyss. But the trench is not only a geological wonder, but also a soundscape full of noises ranging from the mundane to the extraordinary. Sound travels differently underwater. The immense pressure and density of the ocean depths amplify and distort even the slightest vibration, creating a symphony of strange sounds. For decades, researchers have used hydrophones, underwater microphones, to capture these sounds in the hope of gaining information about the trench's mysterious environment. What they recorded was much more than they expected. When scientists placed the hydrophones in the Mariana Trench, they expected to hear the ambient noise of the depths, the faint groans of moving tectonic plates, the rumble of distant underwater volcanoes, or the occasional song of a whale diving into the depths. What they found were sounds that defied all explanation, sounds so strange that they seemed to come from another world. The most famous of these recordings is the twang of the Western Pacific, a noise first recorded in 2014. At first it begins as a low hum, almost like the groan of an old machine, and then it rises rapidly to become a metallic, high-pitched, and piercing squeal before descending to a deep resonant rumble. It is unlike any natural sound captured so far and repeats in a pattern that suggests it is not a random phenomenon. The Biot Wang has been recorded on multiple occasions, always in the same region of the Western Pacific, but what makes it especially disconcerting is its frequency range, so unusual that it does not align perfectly with any known biological or geological source. However, the Biot Wang is only one piece of the puzzle. Other hydrophone recordings in the trench capture bursts of rhythmic pulses almost like sonar, but which do not come from any known man-made device. These pulses are sharp, mechanical, and strangely deliberate, as if signaling something in the depths of the trench. Its origin remains a mystery. Then there are the long, resonant rumbles that extend across the auditory spectrum. These low-frequency growls could be related to geological activity, such as the rubbing of tectonic plates or underwater landslides, but their intensity and clarity suggest that it could be something more. Could they come from an enormous creature yet to be discovered that moves through the trench, or are they natural phenomena, amplified by the unique acoustics of the trench? One of the most disturbing recordings is a sound that some scientists have nicknamed the whistle. It is high-pitched and wavering, almost like the cry of an animal, but it resonates in a way that makes it seem huge and distant, as if it came from the depths of the earth. Some have described it as gloomy, even disturbing, as if the trench itself were alive and screaming. Other sounds are even stranger still. One recording captured what seemed like a continuous rhythmic tapping, like a heartbeat. It was faint but persistent, and its regularity suggested that it was intentional. Could it have been the sound of a deep-sea creature communicating or moving? Or was it something completely mechanical, perhaps an underwater current or the resonance of moving water masses? What makes the sounds of the Mariana Trench so fascinating is their variety. Each noise is distinct from the strange Biot Wang. The disturbing whistles and rhythmic pulses together create an acoustic portrait of a place that seems to defy the natural order. Although some of these sounds have plausible explanations, many remain shrouded in mystery. The mysterious sounds of the Mariana Trench have inspired a number of theories, from the scientific to the more fantastic. Let's start with what we know, or think we know. One of the most accepted theories is that many of the sounds are of biological origin. The ocean is home to an amazing variety of life, much of it yet to be discovered, and the Mariana Trench represents one of the last great frontiers of marine biology. Deep-sea creatures have evolved to survive in extreme conditions, and their adaptations are often stranger than fiction. Could the Biot Wang be the call of an unknown species? Some scientists believe so. The frequency and repetition of the sound suggest a biological pattern, and it is not the first time that the depths of the ocean surprise us. After all, the colossal giant squid that was once believed to be a sailor the myth of the Biot Wang and other recordings do not perfectly match the characteristics of any known marine animal. Not even whales, which produce some of the most complex and varied sounds in the ocean, vocalize at such high frequencies or with the metallic and mechanical quality of the Biot Wang. This has led some researchers to propose an alternative explanation. Perhaps the sounds are geological. The Mariana Trench is a dynamic geological environment, shaped by the rubbing of tectonic plates and the heat of underwater volcanoes. These forces create seismic activity that can produce Biot Wangs. Twang. This has led some researchers to propose an alternative explanation. Perhaps the sounds are geological. The Mariana Trench is a dynamic geological environment, shaped by the rubbing of tectonic plates and the heat of underwater volcanoes. These forces create seismic activity that can produce low-frequency vibrations that can travel kilometers and become distorted as they bounce off the unique structure of the trench. The rhythmic pulses recorded in the trench could be the result of these geological processes. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or even the slow movement of underwater landslides. However, while this explanation accounts for some of the sounds, it does not explain their variety or their sometimes unearthly quality. And then there are the more speculative theories. Some researchers have proposed that the sounds could be related to unidentified underwater objects, or USOs. The ocean is vast and largely unexplored, and stories of strange lights and ships seen under the waves are surprisingly common. Could the Biot wang, or the rhythmic pulses of the Biot, be the result of advanced, unidentified technologies operating in the trench? Although there is no direct evidence to support this idea, the inexplicable nature of the sounds gives rise to speculation. Others have suggested that the sounds could be the result of completely new natural phenomena, processes that we have never observed or understood before. The depths of the ocean are a place of extremes, where pressure, temperature, and chemistry interact in ways difficult to replicate on the surface. Could the strange sounds be the acoustic signature of these interactions? It is a possibility that excites both scientists and deep-sea enthusiasts. Finally, there is the idea that the sounds could hint at something much bigger and deeper, an unknown ecosystem, a new class of life, or even geological features that rewrite our understanding of the planet. The Mariana Trench is a place where the boundaries of science and mystery blur, and each new discovery raises more questions than answers. But despite all the theories and speculations, one thing is certain. The sounds of the Mariana Trench are a reminder of how little we really know about our planet. They are an invitation to explore, to push the limits of technology and knowledge, and to continue asking ourselves what is under the waves. As we listen to these strange noises, we cannot help but wonder what else is out there, waiting to be discovered. Story 4. The Sunken City of Heraclean. Music, the Mariana Trench, and its enigmatic sounds remind us how vast and mysterious the world under the waves really is. From the dark depths of the ocean, where pressure and isolation reign, we head to another aquatic mystery, this one much closer to the surface, but no less intriguing. Imagine a city full of life, with streets full of merchants, temples that stand imposing, and ships that glide through a maze of canals. Then, one day, it disappears, swallowed by the sea, lost in time for more than 1,000 years. This is the story of Heraclea, an ancient city located off the coast of Egypt. For centuries, its existence was debated. Was it real, or just a legend? But in 2000, archaeologists made an incredible discovery. The city of Heraclean was not only real, but had been under the Mediterranean Sea all this time. How did it end up there? What secrets does it hide? And what does its history teach us about the delicate balance between civilization and nature? Let's delve into the lost city of Heraclean and discover its forgotten past. The history of Heraclean begins as a whisper within the pages of ancient history. For centuries, it existed more as a legend than a tangible place, described in the writings of Greek historians such as Herodotus, who spoke of a prosperous city located at the mouth of the Nile, a bustling center of commerce and culture known by two names, Thonis for the Egyptians and Heraclean for the Greeks. According to these accounts, Heraclean was not just any city, but a gateway to Egypt, a place where Mediterranean merchants docked their ships and paid tribute to gods before venturing into the great kingdom. Beyond Heraclean, it was said that there was a place of immense wealth and importance, full of great temples, vibrant markets, and prosperous ports. One of its most notable monuments was a colossal temple dedicated to Ammonius Garb, a god revered by both Egyptians and Greeks. Herodotus claimed that this temple was the beating heart of the city, a place where priests performed sacred rituals and citizens gathered to honor their gods. But even at its peak, Heraclean was shrouded in mystery. Ancient texts hinted that it was a city built on unstable ground, where the earth itself seemed to tremble under the weight of its grandiose structures. Some spoke of floods that threatened to engulf the city completely. Others described earthquakes that shook the Nile Delta and sent tremors through the foundations of temples and homes. These stories of instability seemed to foreshadow a dark destiny. In the Middle Ages, Heraclean had disappeared, its name erased from maps, and its streets had fallen into oblivion for centuries. Scholars debated whether it had really existed. Some believed it was a myth, a creation of ancient storytellers. Others argued that it had been destroyed by natural disasters or buried under layers of sediment carried by the Nile. And then there was the sea. Over the centuries, the Mediterranean had moved inland, claiming vast expanses of land along the Egyptian coast. If Heraclean had existed, some thought it might now lie beneath the waves, a lost city swallowed by the ocean. But without definitive evidence, Heraclean remained a mystery, its history locked in the depths of time. All that changed at the beginning of the 21st century. In 2000, a French underwater archaeologist named Frank Gaudio embarked on a mission to discover the secrets of the ancient coast of Egypt using advanced sonar technology and magnetic imaging. Gaudio and his team began mapping the seabed near the modern city of Alexandria. It was an ambitious undertaking, the search for something that might not even exist. What they found would rewrite history. Under 9 meters of murky water, buried under layers of silt and sand, lay the ruins of Heraclean. It was real, and it was more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined. Imagine descending into the Mediterranean Sea, with the sunlight fading above you as the water becomes colder and darker. Visibility is poor. The seabed is hidden under layers of mud and debris. And then, from the murk, you see it, the remains of an ancient city whose grandiose structures now lie on the ocean floor. For Frank Gaudio and his team, the discovery of Heraclean was like entering a time capsule. As they carefully excavated the site piece by piece, a picture of the lost city began to emerge. The first objects that they discovered were huge statues, whose features were still preserved intact after centuries underwater. Some measured more than 5 meters in height, and their stone faces stared silently into the depths. These statues carved in granite had once adorned the temples and public spaces of the city, but now lay scattered across the seabed, knocked down by the force that had taken over the city. Archaeologists also found evidence of Heraclean's extensive canal system. Unlike most ancient cities, Heraclean was not built on solid ground, but on a network of islands connected by canals, very similar to Venice. These canals allowed ships to navigate the city and bring goods from all over the Mediterranean and beyond. The stone anchors, fragments of ships, and mooring rings found at the site pointed to the city's role as an important port, a place where trade and travel converged. One of the most extraordinary discoveries was the remains of the Temple of Ammonius Garb, the spiritual center of the city. This temple had been a point of reference for both Egyptians and Greeks, a place where pilgrims paid homage to the gods before embarking on their journeys. Archaeologists discovered colossal columns, intricate carvings, and ceremonial artifacts, including gold amulets and offerings to the gods. The scale and craftsmanship of the temple were astonishing, a testament to the city's wealth and religious importance. But Heraclean was not only a religious center, but also a thriving commercial center. Among the ruins, the team discovered coins, weights, and shipping records, evidence of These artifacts revealed that Heraclean had been a commercial crossroads where goods such as gold, spices, and textiles flowed between Egypt and the Mediterranean world. The city's markets must have been a sight to behold, full of merchants and goods from distant lands. Perhaps most disturbing were the remains of everyday life. Archaeologists discovered household items such as pottery, tools, and even food containers preserved in the sediments that had buried the city. These artifacts offered a glimpse into the lives of common people, fishermen, merchants, and families who once called Heraclean their home. It was a world frozen in time, a city trapped in its last moments before disaster struck. As the archaeologists continued their work, they discovered more clues about the fate of Heracleo. The ruins showed signs of sinking, where the ground under the city had gradually sunk over time, along with the rise in sea level and the displacement of the coast. This process may have doomed Heracleo, causing its slow disappearance under the waves. The tests also pointed to a catastrophic event, such as an earthquake or tsunami, which could have dealt the final blow. But, despite all the answers that the ruins provided, new questions also arose. What exactly caused the sinking of the city? How did its people react to the rising waters? What other secrets could still be hidden under the seabed? waiting to be discovered. The rediscovery of Heracleo was more than a simple archaeological triumph. It was a window to the past, a reminder of how civilizations can, in front of us, while Frank Gio and his team reconstructed the history of the lost city. They revealed not only its greatness, but also its fragility, a testimony to the delicate balance between human ambition and the forces of the natural world. The rediscovery of Heracleon provided surprising answers about its existence, but also unleashed a wave of speculation and curiosity about how such an important city could disappear under the waves. While the archaeological evidence offers some clues, the exact series of events that led to the fall of Heracleo remains a mystery. Let's explore the most accepted theories and some intriguing possibilities. One of the most accepted explanations is that Heracleo succumbed to subsidence. The Nile Delta, where the city was located, is composed of soft and waterlogged sediments, hardly the most stable base for heavy stone structures. Over time, the weight of the city's buildings, combined with the natural compaction of the delta's soil, may have caused the ground to subside. Archaeologists have discovered signs of subsidence at the site, such as sloping foundations and collapsed walls. The slow sinking process would have been imperceptible at first, but devastating over the decades, as more parts of the city disappeared underwater. Added to this problem was the rise in the level of the Mediterranean Sea between the height of Heracleon and its eventual collapse. The sea level in the region increased significantly. This gradual but relentless invasion of water would have flooded the low areas and eroded the city's infrastructure, making it increasingly vulnerable to disasters. However, there is evidence suggesting that Heraclea did not simply disappear. Some researchers believe that the city was hit by a catastrophic event, like an earthquake or a tsunami. The Eastern Mediterranean is a seismically active region, and ancient records describe powerful earthquakes that shook the area. A major earthquake could have destabilized the already fragile ground under Heraclea, causing buildings and entire sections of the city to collapse. They sank. Tsunamis are another possibility. The combination of an underwater earthquake and a sudden displacement of water could have unleashed giant waves that flooded the city, sweeping away structures and inundating its canals. Tsunami deposits have been found in other parts of the Mediterranean, and it is possible that Heracleon was one of its victims. Beyond these natural explanations, some theorists have proposed less conventional ideas. Heracleon's status as a religious and cultural center has led to speculation that its fall could have a spiritual dimension. Ancient inscriptions found at the site refer to rituals performed to appease the gods, including offerings and prayers to prevent disasters. Could the destruction of the city have been seen as divine punishment? Although there is no direct evidence to support this idea, it adds an intriguing layer to the story. Then there is the mystery of Heracleo's disappearance from history. After the city sank, its existence seemed to fade from memory. Was it simply because it was no longer accessible, or was there an intentional effort to erase it from the records? Some scholars have speculated that the fall of Heracleo coincided with changes in political or religious power that led to its history being overshadowed by other cities, such as Alexandria. The fact that it took more than 1,000 years to rediscover the city raises questions about how easily history can be lost and how much of it remains hidden under the sea. But perhaps the most tempting mystery is what we still don't know about Heracleo. The underwater site covers an area of more than 40 square miles, and much of it remains unexplored. What secrets could still be buried in the mud and silt? Could there be undiscovered artifacts, inscriptions, or even entire sections of the city waiting to be found? The possibilities are endless, and each new discovery has the potential to rewrite what we know about this ancient metropolis. The rediscovery of Heracleo is not only an archaeological achievement, but a moment that brought the past back to life. For more than a millennium, the city had been buried under layers of sediment and water, and its existence had been reduced to a fragment of legend. But now, thanks to Frank Gaudio and his team, Heracleon has resurfaced, offering a glimpse into a lost world. The ruins are themselves a testament to the resilience of human craftsmanship. Despite having been submerged for centuries, many of the city's structures and artifacts remain remarkably intact. The enormous statues of gods and pharaohs carved in granite still retain the intricate details of their original design. The inscriptions on stone tablets and stelae provide information about the religious and administrative life of the city, while gold amulets and ceremonial objects testify to its wealth and cultural significance. But the resurgence of Heraclio is not limited to artifacts, but to the stories they tell. She, with her canals, ports, and temples, reveals a society deeply connected both to the natural and the spiritual world. The discovery of shipping records and commercial weights highlights the role of Heracleion as a vital link between Egypt and the Mediterranean, a place where goods converged and circulated freely. Each artifact, from the most grandiose statue to the humblest piece of pottery, offers a window into the lives of the people who once called this city home. The rediscovery of Heraclio has also awakened renewed interest in underwater archaeology. The techniques used to locate and excavate the city, such as sonar mapping, magnetic imaging, and careful underwater excavation, have set a new standard for the exploration of submerged sites. Heraclio is now considered one of the most important underwater discoveries of the 21st century, and its history has inspired efforts to search for other lost cities and civilizations. But the legacy of Heron is not limited to the past. It is also a reminder of the fragility of human civilization. The forces that brought down Heraclio, such as rising sea levels, land instability, and natural disasters, continue to act today as we face the challenges of climate change and environmental instability. The history of Heraclio serves as a warning about the delicate balance between human ambition and the power of nature. Today, the ruins of Heracleion remain underwater, protected as an archaeological site, and divers continue to explore its depths, discovering new fragments of its history each year. For those who visit the site or even just see its artifacts on display in museums, Heracleion is more than a lost city. It is a symbol of discovery, resilience, and the enduring mystery of human history. As we leave the waters of Heracleion, a question lingers. What other lost worlds lie waiting beneath the sea? The sea, hidden in the depths, waiting to be discovered? The story of Heracleion reminds us that history is not static, but alive, buried in the earth and oceans, waiting for someone to bring it to the surface. Where will we look next? Story 5. The Disappearance of the San Juan Music. The rediscovery of Heracleion reminds us that some mysteries are buried in the deepest depths, waiting for the right moment to resurface. But not all the stories that hide beneath the waves are about ancient civilizations. Some are much more recent and, in many ways, even more disturbing. While Heracleion resurfaced after centuries hidden under the sea, there are tragedies that remain unresolved and questions that remain unanswered in the depths. One of those mysteries is the disappearance of the AR San Juan, a modern submarine that vanished without a trace in 2017. This is not the story of a lost city, but of 44 sailors who embarked on a routine mission and never returned. What happened to the AR San Juan? Why did it disappear so suddenly, and why did it take more than a year to discover the truth? Leaving behind the ancient ruins of Heracleion, we dive into the inexplicable tragedy of the AR San Juan and discover the chilling details of its last mission. On November 15, 2017, the AR San Juan, a diesel-electric submarine belonging to the Argentine Navy, set sail on what should have been a routine mission. The submarine was one of Argentina's most advanced vessels, a German-built TR 1700-class ship designed for long-duration operations. Launched in 1985, the San Juan had served the Navy for more than 3 decades and had recently undergone a major overhaul, a process designed to extend its useful life by another 30 years. The mission was simple. The San Juan was tasked with patrolling Argentina's territorial waters, monitoring illegal fishing, and maintaining a visible presence in the South Atlantic. Its crew, made up of 44 sailors, was highly trained, with a mix of experienced officers and promising recruits, all well prepared for the challenges of submarine operations. After all, The South Atlantic is not an easy place to navigate. Its waters are cold and rough, and the region is known for its unpredictable climate. The submarine departed from Ushuaia, a remote port city at the southern tip of Argentina, often known as the end of the world. From there, the San Juan began its journey north, toward its base in Mar del Plata, a bustling naval center on the east coast of Argentina. It was a familiar route that the submarine had traveled many times before. According to all reports, the mission was progressing smoothly. On the morning of November 15th, the San Juan contacted Naval Command to report its position and the progress of its journey. During that communication, the crew mentioned that they had an electrical problem in the forward battery compartment. According to the report, seawater had entered through the submarine's snorkel, causing a short circuit in the battery system. Although this was a potentially serious problem, the crew assured Naval Command that they had isolated the affected compartment and were continuing their journey under control. That was the last news of the AR San Juan. When the submarine did not communicate later that day, concern began to grow. By design, submarines usually operate silently, cutting off communications to maintain stealth, so it was not alarming that it did not communicate. But as the hours passed, Naval Command began to fear the worst. The San Juan was officially declared missing, and Argentina launched a large-scale search and rescue operation. The families of the crew gathered at the naval base in Mar del Plata, desperate for any news, while the Navy rushed to locate the vessel. The search for the San Juan quickly became one of the most extensive submarine rescue efforts in history. Within days, Argentina had requested assistance from 18 countries, including the United States, Russia, and the United Kingdom, each of which contributed advanced technology and expertise to the operation, from state-of-the-art sonar systems to specialized underwater drones. Despite the international effort, the South Atlantic proved a formidable adversary. The waters where the San Juan disappeared were vast and treacherous, stretching thousands of kilometers in all directions. The submarine's last known location was near the Gulf of San Jorge, an area where the seabed drops abruptly into deep underwater trenches. These depths, combined with strong currents and unpredictable weather, made the search a logistical nightmare as ships and planes scoured the area. There was still hope that the San Juan was intact and its crew alive, but submarines are equipped with emergency oxygen supplies that can last for several days in the event of a breakdown. If the crew had managed to seal off the damaged compartment and surface, there was a chance they could still be rescued. But as the days turned into weeks, the reality of the situation began to dawn. One of the most chilling clues came from an international organization that monitors hydroacoustic signals, sounds generated by underwater events such as earthquakes, explosions, or activity. On the same day that the San Juan stopped communicating, sensors detected an unusual acoustic event near the submarine's last known position. The sound was consistent with what experts describe as an implosion, suggesting that the San Juan might have suffered a catastrophic failure and that its hull had collapsed under the immense pressure of the ocean. The revelation was devastating. If the San Juan had imploded, it would have been instantaneous, leaving the crew no time to react or send a distress signal. But even with these somber tests, the submarine's exact location remained a mystery. The search continued with Navy ships deploying sonar to scan the ocean floor and planes flying search patterns over the area. However, despite these efforts, the San Juan seemed to disappear without a trace. As the days turned into weeks, the tension began to increase. The families of the crew, gathered at the naval base in Mar del Plata, felt frustrated by the lack of information. Protests broke out with accusations that the Navy had neglected security protocols and mismanaged the search. The incident became a national controversy, putting the state of the Argentine Army and its outdated equipment in the spotlight. At the end of November, the search officially changed from a rescue mission to a recovery operation. Hopes of finding survivors vanished and were replaced by the somber task of locating the shipwreck's remains and discovering the truth of what happened. But the ocean remained silent, its depths guarding the secrets of the San Juan. It would take more than a year of arduous efforts before the mystery finally began to unravel. As the months passed and the remains of the AR San Juan continued without appearing, speculations about the cause of the disappearance of the submarine began to dominate the debates. The lack of definitive answers gave rise to multiple theories, some based on evidence and others more speculative. Each theory painted a chilling picture of how an apparently routine patrol could have ended in catastrophe. One of the main theories focused on the electrical problem that the crew had reported just before their last transmission. The batteries of the San Juan, fundamental for its operation, were vulnerable to failures if seawater infiltrated their compartments. According to the last communication from the submarine, water had entered through the snorkel, causing a short circuit in the front battery compartment. Although the crew assured the Naval Command that the situation was under control, experts suggested the problem could be much more serious than initially reported. A plausible hypothesis is that the short circuit generated hydrogen gas, a byproduct of an electrical malfunction in lead-acid batteries. If the hydrogen gas accumulated in the battery compartment's confined space, even a small spark could have caused a massive explosion. This would coincide with the hydroacoustic anomaly detected near the submarine's last known location, a sound consistent with an implosion or underwater explosion. Another possibility is that the San Juan suffered structural failure due to the immense pressure of the ocean depths. Submarines are designed to operate at specific depths, with their hulls designed to withstand the crushing force of water. However, over time, wear and tear can weaken even the most robust structures. The San Juan was more than 30 years old and had undergone a major refit in 2014, during which many of its parts were replaced or repaired. Critics have questioned whether the remodeling was thorough enough, suggesting that the defects in the hull of the submarine, if the San Juan descended below its safe operating depth, the pressure could have caused the hull to collapse almost instantly. There is also speculation about external factors. The South Atlantic is a vast and busy region, frequented by fishing boats, commercial vessels, and even foreign submarines. Some have wondered if the San Juan could have collided with another vessel, whether above or below the surface. A collision at great depth could have severely damaged the submarine, leaving it unable to surface or send a distress signal. Others have suggested the submarine could have been accidentally hit by a torpedo or mine, although there is no evidence to support this theory. One of the most controversial ideas is that the San Juan was involved in a covert operation at the time of its disappearance. Some sources claim that the submarine was monitoring illegal fishing activities or even foreign military movements in the area. This has led to speculation that the San Juan could have encountered another nation's submarine or been the target of a deliberate act of aggression. Although the Argentine Navy has denied these claims, the mission's secrecy has fueled conspiracy theories. Perhaps the most sensible theory is that the San Juan was simply a victim of the relentless environment in which submarines operate. The ocean is vast, powerful, and indifferent to human life. A combination of mechanical failures, human errors, and environmental factors could have conspired to create a perfect storm of tragedy. The lack of immediate answers only deepened the mystery, leaving families and experts grappling with questions that seemed destined to remain unanswered for over a year. The AR San Juan lay hidden under the waves, its destiny unknown. The search operation, although extensive, struggled against the immensity of the South Atlantic and the technical challenges of locating a submarine in such deep waters. As the months turned into a year, the hope of finding the ship seemed to fade, but in November 2018, there was finally a breakthrough. A private company hired by the Argentine government, Ocean Infinity, joined the search efforts with advanced technology capable of mapping the ocean floor in incredible detail. Their ship, the Seabed Constructor, was equipped with autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, robotic systems designed to operate at extreme depths. These AUVs could scan the seabed with sonar and high-resolution cameras, providing a level of precision that previous searches lacked. On November 17, 2018, a few days after the first anniversary of the San Juan's disappearance, Ocean Infinity made a surprising discovery more than 3,000 feet below the surface, in an area that had been registered but not thoroughly mapped. They found the submarine's remains. The images sent by the AUVs revealed a disturbing scene. The hull of the San Juan was crushed and twisted, with its sections scattered across the seabed. The submarine had clearly suffered catastrophic failure. Its structure had imploded due to the immense pressure of the ocean depths. The location of the remains coincided with the acoustic anomaly detected shortly after the last communication from the submarine, suggesting that the San Juan was lost within hours of its last transmission. The implosion would have been instantaneous, so rapid that the crew would not have had time to react or send a distress signal. It was an overwhelming confirmation of the worst fears about the fate of the submarine. For the families of the 44 sailors, the discovery meant a mixture of relief and desolation. After a year of uncertainty, they finally had answers, but the vision of the shattered remains was a painful reminder of the tragedy. Many relatives expressed their frustration with the Argentine Navy, which they accused of mismanaging the search and not guaranteeing the safety of the submarine. The incident provoked a broad outcry in favor of a reform of the Argentine Army, with demands for better maintenance, training, and transparency. The finding of the San Juan also highlighted the enormous challenges posed by submarine operations. The vessel had been found in one of the most difficult environments imaginable: deep, cold, and remote. The fact that the submarine was located was a testament to the dedication of all those who participated in the search. Submarine was located. However, even with the remains recovered, many questions remained unanswered. What exactly caused the catastrophic failure? Could it have been avoided? What lessons can be learned to ensure such a tragedy never happens again? The remains of the San Juan remain on the seabed, a stark reminder of the risks faced by those who venture into the depths. Its discovery provided some closure, but also highlighted the fragility of human life in the face of. The story of the AR San Juan is a dark chapter in the history of submarine exploration, one that continues to resonate as we expand the limits of what is possible under the waves. Story 6. The Unexplored Depths of the Dragon Hole. Music from the depths of the Atlantic. Where the tragic mystery of the AR San Juan still persists, we now turn to a completely different oceanic enigma hidden in the heart of the South China Sea. It is called the Dragon Hole, the deepest blue hole known on Earth, which sinks more than 1,000 feet into the unknown. What secrets could be hidden in its pitch-black depths? Is it simply a natural wonder, or could it contain answers to questions we have not yet asked? Immerse yourself in the story of the Dragon Hole. Imagine yourself in the middle of the vast South China Sea, where the water stretches endlessly, shimmering with turquoise tones under the bright sun. It seems calm, almost serene, but beneath this surface lies one of the most mysterious and dangerous places on the planet. The Dragon Hole, known locally as the Eye of the South China Sea. This enormous underwater sinkhole has been shrouded in mystery for centuries. The South China Sea is a region replete with natural beauty and legends, dotted with remote islands, treacherous reefs, and underwater formations that seem almost otherworldly. Among them, the Dragon Hole stands out not only for its astonishing size, but for the countless stories and myths that surround it. Locals have long whispered that this dark abyss is home to dragons and spirits, a place where the rules of the natural world do not apply. Sailors feared its attraction, and fishermen warned each other to stay away. However, the Dragon Hole is real. It is not just a product of local folklore, but a geological wonder, an almost bottomless pit that goes deep into the Earth's crust. Its entrance is deceptively beautiful, a perfect circle of dark blue that contrasts sharply with the vibrant turquoise of the surrounding water. But if you get too close, the illusion of tranquility disappears. The currents around the hole are unpredictable, capable of dragging even experienced sailors into its depths. For centuries, no one dare explore it. It was just a dark, unexplored, and unknown void, the kind of place that seems designed to swallow both curiosity and courage. All that changed in 2016, when a team of Chinese researchers decided to accept the challenge of exploring this ancient mystery. What they found surprised and baffled scientists, leaving more questions than answers about this extraordinary place. In 2016, the Dragon Hole finally caught the attention of scientists determined to discover its secrets. The discovery came thanks to satellite images that revealed the enormous circular formation in the middle of the sea. The research team, equipped with advanced sonar, diving equipment, and remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, set out to investigate, but exploring a place like this was no easy task. The South China Sea is remote and often dangerous, and the location of the Dragon Hole near the disputed Paracel Islands only increased the logistical challenges. The first step was simply reaching the hole. The research vessel anchored at a safe distance, and the team began to deploy equipment to measure the depth and dimensions of the sinkhole. What they found was astonishing. At a depth of 987 feet, the Dragon Hole officially became the deepest blue hole ever discovered, surpassing even the famous Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas. Its width was equally impressive, with an entrance that extended over 430 feet. It was as if nature itself had carved a perfect hatch into the ocean floor, but the real mystery lay beneath the surface. The team sent an ROV into the depths, and the images it captured were disturbing and fascinating. The descent began in clear, sunny waters. Schools of fish moved quickly around the entrance, seemingly oblivious to the abyss below, but as the ROV descended beyond 300 feet, the light began to fade. At 500 feet, the water was completely black and temperature dropped drastically. This was the point at which life, as we know it, ceased to exist. The researchers discovered a clear dividing line between the upper layers of the water, rich in oxygen, and the lifeless depths that lay below. This line acts as a barrier, preventing oxygen from circulating to the lower parts of the hole. As a result, the environment beyond this layer is completely anoxic, meaning it is totally devoid of oxygen. It is a hostile, almost alien world, where survival is impossible for most life forms. Despite the challenges, the team moved forward. The lights of the ROV revealed irregular walls covered in sediment, evidence of the ancient formation of the sinkhole. Unlike other blue holes with smooth, sloping bottoms, the floor of the Dragon's Hole is irregular and fractured, suggesting the possibility of hidden caves or tunnels. These characteristics immediately raise questions. Were they natural formations, or could they have been shaped by geological events or ancient civilizations? The researchers documented vibrant marine life near the surface, including colorful corals and unique fish species thriving in the oxygen-rich layers. However, as the ROV continued to explore, the images took on a disturbing character. The deeper it went, the more desolate and lifeless the environment became. When it reached the bottom, the silence was palpable, broken only by the hum of the ROV's machinery. The Dragon's Hole was not just a sinkhole. It was a vertical time capsule, a place that had probably remained unchanged for thousands, if not millions, of years. Its unique structure and conditions made it a scientific goldmine. The team collected samples of water and sediment, hoping to analyze them for clues about the history of the Ho and its role in the ecosystem of the South China Sea. But, despite all their discoveries, the Dragon's Hole remained an enigma. Its depth and inaccessibility meant that many questions remained unanswered. Could there be unknown life forms hidden in its darkest corners? Were there ancient artifacts or geological secrets buried under the sediments? The team left with more mysteries than they had solved, and the Dragon's Hole continued to keep its secrets. A silent giant in the middle of the sea, the Dragon's Hole is not only a geological wonder, but a place that awakens speculation. Its enormous size and enigmatic nature have inspired theories ranging from the scientific to the supernatural, each adding to its charm. One of the most discussed scientific theories is that the Dragon's Hole could serve as a natural archive of Earth's history. Blue holes like this often form during periods of glaciation, when sea level was much lower. Over time, as the water level rose, these vertical sinkholes flooded, preserving layers of sediment and microorganisms along their walls. By analyzing these layers, scientists could discover secrets about ancient climate patterns, oceanic changes, and even mass extinction events. In other words, The Dragon's Hole could contain a record of Earth's history written in the language of stone and sediment. But there is more. The unique boundary between the oxygen-rich and anoxic water layers within the Dragon's Hole creates an environment rarely seen on Earth. The researchers speculate that these conditions could mimic those found in the ancient oceans billions of years ago, when life on Earth was just beginning to emerge. Could the Dragon's Hole contain microorganisms or chemical compounds that offer clues about the origins of life? It is a tempting idea, which could rewrite what we know about our planet's past. On the other hand, there are the geological mysteries. The irregular floor of the Dragon's Hole, with its irregular features and hidden cracks, has led some to wonder if it is connected to an even larger underground network. Could there be tunnels or caverns that branch off from the sinkhole and go deep into the Earth's crust? If so, what could those spaces contain? Ancient fossils, rare minerals, or perhaps evidence of seismic activity that could provide information about the region's geological history? Of course, not all theories are purely scientific. The Dragon's Hole's legendary status among local fishermen has given rise to countless myths and stories. Some believe it is a portal to another world, a door where the physical and the spiritual meet. Others claim that it is cursed, a place where ships and even people disappear without a trace. These stories may seem far-fetched, but they reflect a deep respect and fear of the unknown. One particularly intriguing idea is that the Dragon's Hole could have been important to ancient sailors. The South China Sea has been a vital trade route for centuries, and some wonder if the hole was marked on ancient maps as a landmark or warning. Could it have been a sacred place, a place of ritual or reverence for those who sailed these treacherous waters? Or could it be related to the lost city of Lemuria, a mythical Pacific counterpart to Atlantis? Although there is no evidence to support these claims, the possibility adds an extra layer of mystery to an already enigmatic place. And then there is the question of whether the Dragon's Hole has claimed lives. Local legends say that a fisherman disappeared after venturing too close to the hole and that his boat was swallowed by its powerful currents. Although there is no definitive evidence of these accounts, the dangers of the South China Sea are well documented. The combination of sudden storms, unpredictable tides, and the hole's magnetic attraction could easily turn a routine fishing trip into a fatal encounter. Whether reality or fiction, these stories add to the disturbing reputation of the Hole. Despite all the theories, the Dragon Hole continues being an enigma, because for each question that the scientists answer, new mysteries arise that remind us how little we know about the oceans of our planet. The Dragon Hole is not only a place, it is a reminder of the vast, unexplored world that exists under the waves at almost 1,000 feet deep. It is a testimony to the power and mystery of nature, a vertical border that defies our current understanding of Earth. The Dragon Hole remains largely unexplored still. The logistical and technological challenges of studying such a remote and extreme environment mean that much of its history still has not been told. Even the deepest dives and the most advanced equipment have barely scratched the surface of what is found inside. Could be waiting in the unexplored crevices of the bottom. Could there be unknown life forms adapted to the harsh conditions of the anoxic depths? Or perhaps geological phenomena that we have never seen before? The possibilities are endless. Some researchers speculate that blue holes like the Dragon Hole could form part of a global network of submarine sinkholes, each connected by hidden tunnels. If this were true, it could have implications for everything from marine biology to submarine exploration, and it could even change our way of thinking about the movement of water and nutrients through oceanic ecosystems. But the Dragon Hole is not only about what we can learn, but also about what we feel when on the edge of such a vast dark void. You cannot avoid feeling a sensation of awe and humility. It is a place where human knowledge meets its limits, where even the most advanced technology struggles to reveal the secrets hidden in shadows. For the locals, the Dragon Hole is more than a simple scientific curiosity. It is a place of reverence and fear, a natural wonder that has inspired awe for generations. For them, it is not only a hole in the bottom of the ocean, but a living symbol of the unknown, a reminder that some mysteries are destined to remain unresolved. While the researchers continue studying the dragon hole, one thing is certain: it will never lose its allure. Whether a geological time capsule, a door to another world, or simply one of the most impressive creations of nature, the dragon hole stands as a testimony to the enduring power of mystery in a world in which so much has been mapped and measured. It is a place that still defies all explanation. And thus, the dragon hole waits, silent and immobile, guarding its secrets in the deepest of its entrails, challenging us to continue asking questions, to continue exploring, and to remember that, as much as we believe we know, there is always more to discover. Story 7. The Inexplicable Treasure of Anti-Cache. Music from the mysterious depths of the dragon hole, where secrets are swallowed by thousands of meters of water. We now move to the sun-kissed seas of the Mediterranean, where in 1900 an ancient enigma was discovered. The world was experiencing a rapid transformation. Industrialization was at its peak, nations were expanding their reach, and science was unveiling the secrets of the natural world. However, beneath the surface of the Aegean Sea, an ancient secret was hidden, a time capsule from more than 2,000 years ago, intact and unknown. This secret was about to be discovered, not by scientists or explorers, but by a group of humble sponge divers. The Aegean Sea has long been a vital lifeline for Greece. Its waters, dotted with islands, have been a center of commerce, exploration, and culture for thousands of years, but also a dangerous region, with an unpredictable climate and rugged coasts. Beneath its crystalline waters lies a graveyard of shipwrecks, ships that met their destiny in storms or collisions, with their treasures lost in the sea. The small island of Antithos, located between Crete and continental Greece, is a tranquil and rocky place. At the beginning of the 20th century, it was practically unknown outside of Greece, a remote outpost surrounded by treacherous waters. For the local divers, this region of the Aegean Sea was their workplace, a place where they risked their lives to collect sponges from the seabed. It was a dangerous profession that forced them to submerge to depths of more than 30 meters with rudimentary equipment that offered little protection against the immense pressure and freezing water. On an autumn day in 1900, a group of these divers embarked on what they thought would be a normal expedition, led by Captain Dimitrios Kondos. The crew anchored the ship near Antide and prepared to dive. Among them was a young diver named Elias Statos, who would be the first to descend to the depths that day. Little did he know that he was about to stumble upon one of the most extraordinary discoveries in the history of archaeology. Elias descended slowly, with the weight of his diving suit pulling him down towards the murky depths. The more he went in, the colder and darker everything became, until finally his feet touched the seabed. Looking for sponges, something strange caught his attention. Protruding from the sand were forms that did not belong there, objects that seemed carved and elaborate, not formed by nature. At first he thought that he had found a sunken city, whose ruins extended before him. But upon approaching he realized that it was not a city, but the remains of an ancient ship, with its cargo scattered on the seabed. Elias returned to the surface, gasping for air and shouting about what he had seen. At first, his crewmates were skeptical. The submerged cities and the treasures were a thing of legends, not reality. But as more divers descended to the place, they saw it with their own eyes. Columns, statues, ceramics, and fragments of what seemed to be tools and machinery, all of which lay in a disturbing silence under the waves. The divers had no idea what they had stumbled upon, but they knew that it was important. They began to bring the remains of the shipwreck to the surface, risking their lives to recover artifacts that had remained hidden for centuries. What they brought to the surface would forever change our way of understanding the ancient world. The remains lay at about 150 feet beneath the surface, a depth that, at that moment, was considered almost unattainable. The divers, who used rudimentary diving suits and air pumps, faced extreme danger each time they descended. The pressure at that depth was immense, and decompression sickness, known as diver's disease, was a constant threat. However, despite these challenges, the crew was determined to uncover the secrets of the shipwreck. When they began to rescue the artifacts, it was clear that it was not just any shipwreck. The place was full of treasures, from marble statues and bronze figurines to ceramics and glassware. Many of the statues were life-size and represented gods, athletes, and mythical creatures. Although some were broken or corroded, their craftsmanship was unmistakable. These were works of great skill created by artisans of the ancient Greek world. One of the most shocking discoveries was a bronze statue of a young man, now known as the Antikythera youth. Although it was encrusted with centuries of marine growth, its elegant and detailed features hinted at the artistic peak of the Hellenistic period. Other statues represented Hermes, Hercules, and other figures from Greek mythology, but the ship's cargo was not limited to art. Among the remains were everyday objects such as coins, dice, and furniture. These artifacts allowed a glimpse into the lives of the people who had sailed on the ship: merchants, sailors, and perhaps wealthy passengers traveling the Mediterranean. Some of the coins found at the site suggested that the ship came from the eastern Mediterranean, possibly from Asia Minor or Egypt, and was heading to Rome when it sank. The wide variety of objects suggested that the ship was carrying a mixture of goods probably intended for trade or gifts for wealthy clients. Its route, which crossed the heart of the ancient world, would have been a vital link in the Mediterranean trade network. But why did the ship sink? Was it caught in a sudden storm? Did it crash against the rocky coast of Antikythera? The answers to these questions remain unanswered, lost in the waves. Then a strange lump of corroded metal and wood appeared. At first glance, it looked like just another piece of debris encrusted with centuries of sediment. But when the archaeologists began to clean and examine it, they realized it was something extraordinary. Embedded in the mass were gears, dials, and inscriptions, components of a machine unlike any other seen in the ancient world. This object, now known as the Antikythera mechanism, would become one of the most studied artifacts in history. It was a device of astonishing complexity, with interlocking gears and intricate mechanisms that suggested it had been used to perform astronomical calculations. Some researchers believe that it was capable of predicting solar and lunar eclipses, tracking the position of the planets, and even marking the dates of the ancient Olympic Games. The discovery of the Antikythera mechanism added a new layer of intrigue to the shipwreck. How had such advanced technology existed in ancient Greece? Who had built this device, and why was the mechanism so sophisticated that it would not be matched until the development of modern clocks in the 19th century? Its presence on the ship raised profound questions about the scientific knowledge of the ancient world and how much of that knowledge had been lost over time. The ancient shipwreck, with its treasures and mysteries, remains one of the most important archaeological finds of all time. It offers a window into a long-gone world, a glimpse of the art, innovation, and interconnectedness of the ancient Mediterranean, and yet, despite all that we have learned, the shipwreck still holds secrets buried in the depths of the sea. What else could it reveal? The answer, like the ship, lies beneath the waves. Story 8. The Ghost Ship Mary Celeste. Music. The story of the Antikythera shipwreck reminds us that the ocean is both a time capsule and a cemetery that preserves pieces of our past while hiding unsolved mysteries. It houses relics of ancient civilizations, the secrets of lost technologies, and evidence of lives lived, but sometimes the mysteries of the ocean are not buried under centuries of sand, but are hauntingly frozen in time, leaving us wondering what might have happened. In 1872, a ship named the Mary Celeste was discovered adrift in the Atlantic Ocean. Its sails were partially hoisted, its cargo intact, and its provisions stored, but the crew was nowhere to be found. There were no corpses or signs of struggle, just an empty ship silently cutting through the waves. To this day, the disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste remains one of the most chilling maritime mysteries in history. Let's set the stage for this unsettling story. The Mary Celeste was not a ship that seemed destined for infamy at first. It was a modest brig built more to be functional than impressive, with just over 30 meters in length and 75 meters in beam. It was neither grand nor particularly unique among the countless merchant ships that plied the world's oceans in the 19th century. However, what the Mary Celeste lacked in size and splendor, it more than made up for in resilience. It was a robust, two-masted ship designed to carry heavy loads across treacherous seas. Originally launched under the name Amazon in Nova Scotia in 1861, the vessel had endured numerous hardships even before the events that would make it famous. During its maiden voyage, the Amazon suffered damage and had to be repaired. In the following years, it changed hands several times and suffered a series of mishaps that seemed to indicate that bad luck haunted it wherever it sailed. In 1867, the ship had grounded during a storm off the island of Cape Breton, being wrecked and abandoned. It was later rescued, sold at auction, and renamed Mary Celeste. It is impossible to know if this name change was an attempt to rid the ship of bad luck or simply a new beginning. It is impossible to know, but if the name change was intended to ward off bad luck, it did not work. In 1872, the Mary Celeste was under the command of Captain Benjamin Briggs, a man whose reputation was diametrically opposed to that of the ship. Briggs was an experienced sailor, a captain with decades of experience sailing the unpredictable Atlantic. He was known for his meticulous nature, carefully planning every detail of his voyages and running the ship with a firm hand. Those who worked with him respected his calm demeanor and good judgment. He was not the type of man to take unnecessary risks or make hasty decisions, and he did not tolerate negligence aboard his ship. But this particular voyage of the Mary Celeste was not just another job for Captain Briggs. It was personal. Together with the 7 crew members he had personally selected for their reliability, Briggs brought aboard his wife Sarah and his 2-year-old daughter Sophia. It was unusual for captains to take their families on trips of this type, but Briggs, a deeply religious man, valued family most of all. The trip to Genova, Italy, was as much a family reunion for Sarah and Sophia as it was a business adventure for Briggs. The Mary Celeste sailed from the port of New York on November 7, 1872, carrying a cargo of 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. This was not the type of alcohol that is drunk in a tavern, but was highly flammable and volatile, mainly used in manufacturing and industry. Handling such a shipment required careful planning and constant vigilance. But for Briggs, it was just another aspect of the job. The crossing of the Atlantic, although always a challenge, was a route that he knew well. During the first weeks, the trip passed without incident. The weather was relatively calm for November, and a logbook recorded constant progress sailing east towards Europe. The crew fulfilled their tasks diligently. The Briggs family settled into their cabins, and the ship maintained its course. By all accounts, everything was in order, but as the Mary Celeste approached the Azores, something changed. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened during those last days aboard the ship. Did they encounter a sudden storm, a giant wave, or something far stranger? All we know for sure is that, when the Mary Celeste was discovered, the ship was abandoned, and its crew and passengers had disappeared without a trace. On December 4, 1872, the British brig de Gracia was crossing the Atlantic en route from New York to Gibraltar. Like the Mary Celeste, the de Gracia was a cargo ship, but its journey had begun weeks earlier, placing it several hundred miles behind Briggs' ship. The captain of the de Gracia, David Moroyus, was an experienced sailor who knew the unpredictable waters of the Atlantic, unpredictable waters of the Atlantic. That particular morning, as the de Gracia approached the Azores, Moroyus and his crew noticed something unusual on the horizon. A ship sailing adrift aimlessly, with its sails partially hoisted but loose against the wind. The ship seemed to move aimlessly, carried by the current instead of being steered by any hand at the helm. At first, Moroyus thought the ship might be in danger, something common in an era when storms and accidents claimed hundreds of ships each year. But as the de Gracia approached, it became clear that something was very wrong. Through a spyglass, Moroyus saw no one on deck, no flag, no distress signals, no signs of life. The ship's name, painted on the stern, identified it as the Mary Celeste. Moroyus was stunned. He personally knew Captain Briggs and had even dined with him before their respective trips. The two ships had sailed from the same port a few days apart, but there was the Mary Celeste, apparently abandoned and adrift. Concerned about the safety of the crew and passengers, Morehouse ordered a boarding party to investigate. Two sailors from the De Grey approached the Mary Celeste and boarded. What they found would baffle and disturb them and the world for generations. The ship was eerily silent, the only sounds coming from the creaking of the wood and the lapping of the waves against the hull. The interior of the cabins and the hold was remarkably intact. The ship's provisions, barrels of salted meat, water, and other supplies were intact, enough for the crew to survive for months. The personal belongings of the crew and the Briggs family were still in place. Barrel of provisions, with salted meat, water, and other supplies, were intact, enough for the crew to survive for months. The personal belongings of the crew and the Briggs family were still in its place, from clothes to toys for little Sophia. Even valuables, such as gold coins and navigation equipment, remained intact. The cargo of the Mary Celeste, 1701 barrels of industrial alcohol, was mostly present. Only 9 empty barrels were found, an anomaly that would later lead to speculation about what might have happened aboard the ship. The navigation log, found in Captain Briggs' cabin, recorded the vessel's last position on November 25th, placing it near the Azores. There was nothing in the diary to suggest any problem. The last entry was routine and noted the weather conditions and course. The most disconcerting detail was the absence of the crew. All the lifeboats were gone, suggesting that the crew had abandoned ship. But why? The Mary Celeste was seaworthy and showed no signs of major damage. There was no indication of fire, flooding, or violence. The ship appeared to have been abandoned in a hurry, but the reason for the crew's departure remained unclear. The sailors who boarded the Mary Celeste could not shake off the disturbing feeling that was taking over the ship, as if time had stopped and the normal rhythm of life had been abruptly interrupted. They took the Mary Celeste back to Gibraltar, where an official investigation would be carried out to determine what had happened, but the discovery of the Mary Celeste was only the beginning of the mystery. The discovery of the Mary Celeste was only the beginning. What followed was more than a century of speculation, investigation, and debate. How could a fully stocked and seaworthy ship be found completely abandoned in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? What force, natural or otherwise, could force an experienced captain like Benjamin Briggs to order his crew and family to abandon the safety of their ship? These questions have haunted historians, sailors, and mystery enthusiasts for decades. To understand what may have happened, we must delve into the theories, some based on facts and others that delve into the realm of the strange. The simplest explanation is that some natural event forced the crew to abandon the Mary Celeste. One of the most common theories involves giant waves, enormous walls of water that can appear without warning, often caused by strong currents or sudden changes in the climate. A giant wave could have hit the Mary Celeste, flooding the deck and causing panic among the crew. If the ship had temporarily taken on water, it might have seemed to those on board that the ship was sinking, which would have led them to launch the lifeboat. Another possibility is that the ship encountered a waterspout, a tornado over water. Waterspouts can create strong winds and torrential rains that destabilize ships and frighten passengers. If the crew believed that the Mary Celeste was in immediate danger, they might have abandoned ship with the intention of returning once the weather improved. There's also evidence suggesting that the Mary Celeste may have suffered problems with the cargo. The ship was carrying 171 barrels of industrial alcohol, a highly volatile substance. Subsequent investigations revealed that 9 of the barrels were empty. Some researchers have proposed that the alcohol may have spilled, releasing dangerous gases, and that a spark or a small fire in the hold could have caused an explosion or, at least, a sudden and terrifying flash of fire. If this happened, it is possible that the crew panicked for fear that the entire cargo would catch fire and abandon the ship. Interestingly, tests carried out in the 2000s simulated what could happen if alcohol vapors caught fire in an enclosed space. These experiments showed that such an explosion could occur without leaving burn marks or significant damage, which would explain why the ship appeared intact. However, even with these modern tests, we still do not know. There remains an unanswered question. If the crew abandoned the ship, why did they not return when the danger passed? Another category of theories involves human conflict. Was there a mutiny on board the Mary Celeste? It is a plausible idea, since discontent among crew members has caused countless incidents at sea throughout history. However, there is little evidence to support this theory. The ship was found in good condition, with no signs of fighting or violence, and valuables, such as gold coins, were left intact, making robbery or mutiny less likely. Piracy has also been suggested, but it is a strange theory considering the state of the ship. Pirates usually loot ships in search of valuables, and the cargo and supplies of the Mary Celeste were intact. In addition, piracy in the Atlantic was rare in the 1870s, as maritime law enforcement had greatly reduced these activities. If pirates had attacked, they would probably have taken the cargo and valuables, or at least left some trace of their presence. Like any enduring mystery, the Mary Celeste has attracted its share of paranormal theories. Some have suggested that the ship was the victim of extraterrestrial forces and that the crew was abducted by aliens. Others believe that the Mary Celeste encountered a supernatural event, such as a curse or ghostly presence, which drove the crew to madness or death. Although these ideas are largely dismissed by historians, they remain a popular part of the ship's tradition, fueling the imagination of writers, filmmakers, and mystery enthusiasts. There is even a connection with the infamous Bermuda Triangle, although the Mary Celeste was far from its limits when it was discovered. Even so, this has not prevented some from relating the ship to its reputation for unexplained disappearances. One of the most practical theories is that the crew abandoned the ship due to a combination of small problems that became a total crisis. For example, it is possible that the ship's pump failed, leading the crew to believe that the ship was sinking, which, combined with bad weather, alcohol vapors, or another alarming event, could have convinced Captain Briggs that the ship was no longer safe. The lack of lifeboats suggests that the crew launched one to escape the perceived danger. However, navigating the Atlantic in a small open boat would have been almost impossible. The crew may have been swept away by strong currents, capsized in a storm, or succumbed to exposure and dehydration. If this theory is correct, the decision to abandon the ship was probably a tragic miscalculation born of fear and uncertainty. In the decades since the Mary Celeste was found, modern technology and research have provided some clues, but no definitive answers. Maritime historians have analyzed the ship's design, cargo, and weather records, while forensic experts have studied the artifacts left on board. Each piece of evidence adds a layer to the puzzle, but the central mystery remains unsolved. Why did the crew abandon a ship in perfect sailing condition? Even the subsequent history of the ship is marked by disgrace. After the Mary Celeste was rescued, it returned to service under new owners, but never got rid of its reputation as a cursed ship. In 1885, it was deliberately sunk off the coast of Haiti in what appears to be an insurance fraud, ending its turbulent career. Despite its tragic end, the story of the Mary Celeste endures and has inspired countless books, films, and debates, captivating the public with its disturbing combination of facts and unanswered questions. The Mary Celeste is more than just a ghost ship. It's a symbol of the ocean's ability to humble and baffle us. Its story reminds us that, even with all our technology and knowledge, the sea hides secrets that we may never fully unravel. Was it a natural disaster, a human error, or something that we still cannot understand? The answer, like the crew of the Mary Celeste, remains lost in the depths. What do you think happened to the Mary Celeste? Was it a desperate decision in the face of danger or something more sinister? Leave me your opinion in the comments. History in the lost city of Pavo, music. Petrie, the story of the Mary Celeste, is a disturbing reminder of how much the sea can snatch from us. Lives, ships, and answers. But there are not only mysteries and disappearances under the waves. Sometimes the ocean hides the remains of entire civilizations. Places that in their day were full of life, commerce, and culture, now preserve in an unsettling silence under layers of sand and salt water. Another type of maritime enigma under the calm waters lies Pavo Petrie, a lost city that is even older than the pyramids. Unlike the myths of Atlantis, Petri is real. It is the oldest submerged city ever discovered and is so well preserved that its streets, buildings, and courtyards remain intact, offering an unprecedented vision of a world that thrived more than 5,000 years ago. Immerse yourself in this extraordinary story of mystery and the power of the sea in the extreme south of Greece, where the rugged coast meets the blue Mediterranean Sea. The Pelion Peninsula has long been a land full of history. This region is known for its myths of gods and heroes, its epic wars, and its enduring ruins. It has always been a place where history and legend intertwine, but not all its secrets lie above the surface. Beneath the waves of the Gulf of Laconia, hidden for millennia, lies one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries of our time, the ancient city of Petri. For centuries, fishermen and locals whispered about strange shapes that they sometimes glimpsed under the crystal-clear waters, a hint of stone walls, the shadow of a forgotten structure, but the sea keeps its secrets, and no one gave it importance. After all, ancient ruins are nothing rare in Greece. Who would have imagined that those fleeting flashes were the outlines of a city prior not only to classical Greece, but even to the pyramids of Egypt? The rediscovery of Petri began in 1967, when Nicholas Fleming, a British oceanographer, was conducting underwater studies in the area. At that time, underwater archaeology was still in its infancy. Divers depended on simple equipment, and there were no sophisticated imaging tools such as sonar or 3D mapping. Fleming was not looking for a lost city. He was simply studying the seabed, but while diving in the shallow waters near the small beach of Petri, something unusual caught his attention. A few meters below the surface, the unmistakable shapes of man-made structures could be seen. Fleming had stumbled upon what appeared to be streets and buildings, the skeleton of an ancient settlement long claimed by the sea. It was an extraordinary finding, but the scope of what he had discovered would not become evident until the following year, when a team of archaeologists from the University of Cambridge arrived to investigate. As they began their work, they realized that they were facing something much older and more significant than they had imagined. It was not just a set of ruins, but a carefully planned and extraordinarily well-preserved city. Even more surprising was its antiquity. Initial studies dated the site to around 1000 BC, placing it in the late Bronze Age, but as research progressed, it became clear that Petri was much older, with its origins dating back to at least 3000 BC, which made it the oldest submerged city in the world. What made Petri even more remarkable was its state of preservation. Unlike other ancient cities that had been eroded by time, looted, or destroyed by human activity, Petri had been protected by the sea. Its streets, buildings, and tombs were almost exactly as they had been thousands of years ago, offering a unique window into a world that had disappeared long ago in the waters that surround it. Petri is like entering a time machine. Just 3 or 4 meters below the surface, the city unfolds with astonishing clarity. Its layout has been preserved as if its inhabitants had just left. For archaeologists and divers, an otherworldly experience to walk through streets that have not felt human footsteps in more than 5,000 years. The city itself is surprisingly well organized, a testament to the ingenuity of its builders. Straight, narrow streets intersect at right angles, forming a grid pattern that would be familiar to modern urban planners. In the heart of the city is a central square, a large open space that may have served as a market or meeting place. Around this square are groups of buildings, some small and simple, probably dwellings or workshops, while others are larger and more elaborate, suggesting a public or administrative function. Archaeologists have identified at least 15 structures, although they believe there are many more buried under layers of sand and sediment. These buildings are not random, but were carefully built with knowledge of engineering as well as aesthetics. Stone walls, some several meters thick, define the boundaries of each structure. Inside there are remains of homes, storage areas, and even drainage systems, evidence of a society that understood the importance of sanitation and resource management. The most intriguing discoveries are the city's cemeteries, scattered throughout Pavo-Petrie. Our tombs contain ceramics, tools, and other artifacts. These objects allow us to glimpse the daily lives of the people who lived here, their diet, their trades, and even their artistic sensibility. Ceramics, in particular, are a treasure trove of information, decorated with intricate patterns and symbols that reflect the culture and beliefs of their creators, as well as their connections with other civilizations. Some of the designs suggest trade with distant regions, indicating that Pavo-Petrie was part of a wider commercial network of the Bronze Age. But Pavo-Petrie was not just a city of homes and markets, but a maritime center. The discovery of large stone anchors and slipways for launching boats points to a society deeply connected to the sea. The location of the city, nestled in a protected bay with easy access to the Mediterranean Sea, would have made it an ideal port for trade. Archaeologists believe that Pavo-Petrie played a key role in the exchange of goods, ideas, and culture during the Bronze Age, serving as a link between the civilizations of the Aegean, the Near East, and beyond. As researchers continue to explore the site, they have uncovered more and more evidence of this maritime activity. The tools and artifacts found in the city suggest that its inhabitants were skilled sailors and naval builders capable of navigating the unpredictable waters of the Mediterranean. The city's proximity to natural resources, such as wood for shipbuilding and fertile land for agriculture, would have made it a thriving center of commerce and industry. But despite all its ingenuity and prosperity, Pavo-Petrie was not immune to the forces of nature. The location of the city, so advantageous for trade, also left it vulnerable to the element on which it depended, the sea. Over time, the rising sea level, combined with the geological activity common in the region, slowly consumed the city, submerging it beneath the waves. When walking today through the ruins of Pavo-Petrie, it is easy to imagine the vibrant life that once filled its streets. Children playing in the square, merchants shouting prices for their merchandise, and sailors preparing ships for a long journey. This was a city that lived and breathed, a city that prospered on the confines of the known world and, yet like so many other ancient civilizations, ended up claimed by the forces of nature, leaving only whispers of its history. Pavo-Petrie is more than just a city. It is a time capsule, a snapshot of the Bronze Age frozen under the sea. Its discovery has transformed our understanding of ancient history, offering a unique and invaluable vision of a world lost in the depths. But even as we learn more about Pavo-Petrie, questions remain unanswered, such as, who were the people who built this city? What role did it play in the ancient world? What secrets remain hidden under the sand and the water? The discovery of Pavo-Petrie has provided archaeologists with an unprecedented vision into the Bronze Age. Its streets, buildings, and artifacts paint a vivid picture of a prosperous and interconnected society. But although much has been learned, questions persist about its final destiny. Why did a city so well built and so advanced for its time disappear under the waves? The answers are as elusive as the city itself, and are found in the heart of the mystery that surrounds Pavo-Petrie. One of the most accepted theories is that Pavo-Petrie was a victim of natural forces beyond its control. Geologically, the region surrounding the Gulf of Laconia is very active. Earthquakes are frequent, and the proximity of the land to tectonic faults means that even small displacements could have devastating effects. A single powerful earthquake could have caused the collapse of sections of the city, creating structural instability and forcing its inhabitants to abandon their homes. Over time, repeated seismic activity could have caused the sinking of the coast to sink, leaving Pavo-Petrie at the mercy of the advancing sea. The rise in sea level during the Late Bronze Age is another possible culprit. Geological evidence suggests that the Mediterranean experienced a gradual but significant increase in water level during this period. It was not a slow advance over centuries, but a series of rapid floods caused by a changing climate. Pavo-Petrie, located just above sea level, could have been especially vulnerable. It is possible that the inhabitants of the city tried to adapt by building dikes or raising their structures. But these efforts would not have been enough to cope with the relentless rise of the water. Another theory involves a combination of these factors, a double blow of earthquakes and floods. Let us imagine a prosperous port city with streets bustling and full of activity, which is suddenly hit by a powerful earthquake. The buildings collapse, the ground shifts, and the coast, once stable, begins to sink. The rising water swept away the ruins, leaving the city submerged and its population displaced. Over time, sediments and sand buried the remains, preserving them until their rediscovery thousands of years later. But the question of how Pavlopetri was lost is only part of the mystery. The question of why it disappeared is deeper. What role did Pavlopetri play in the ancient world, and what does its destiny tell us about the people who live there? Some archaeologists believe that Pavlopetri was a nerve center of the Minoan civilization, one of the oldest and most sophisticated cultures of the Bronze Age. Known for its elaborate palaces, its vibrant art, and its extensive commercial networks, the Minoans were maritime pioneers. If Pavlopetri was truly a Minoan outpost, its loss could reflect the decline of that civilization. Around the year 1000 AC, the Minoans faced a series of devastating events, such as volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and invasions by external forces. Pavlopetri may have been caught up in this turmoil and abandoned as the Minoan world collapsed. Others argue that Pavlopetri was a more localized settlement, part of a wider network of city-states that dotted the Greek coast. If this is true, its disappearance could have been the result of more mundane factors: economic decline, resource depletion, or a change in trade routes. Perhaps the city's port silted up, making it less accessible to ships, or perhaps its strategic importance diminished over time. What is clear is that the history of Pavlopetri is a story of resilience and fragility. It was a city built to prosper in harmony with the sea, but was eventually claimed by the very waters that sustained it. While researchers continue to study the site, new discoveries could shed light on the mystery of its destiny. For now, Pavlopetri remains an enigma, a city that defies our understanding of the ancient world. Today, Pavlopetri lies just below the surface, a silent testimony to the ingenuity and adaptability of its creators. For centuries it remained hidden, forgotten by history and untouched by the hand of man. But thanks to modern technology and the dedication of archaeologists, the city has come to light again, both figuratively and literally. One of the most significant advances in the study of Pavlopetri has been the use of 3D mapping and underwater imaging in the early 2010s. A team of researchers partnered with the Hellenic Ministry of Culture to create a detailed digital model of the city using high-resolution sonar and photogrammetry. They were able to map the site with unprecedented detail, revealing features that had remained hidden for millennia. The resulting images are impressive, showing streets, buildings, and even individual stones with astonishing clarity. These efforts have allowed archaeologists to explore Pavlopetri without disturbing its fragile remains. Unlike traditional excavations, which often involve the removal of artifacts and structures, digital mapping preserves the site as it is, ensuring that future generations can continue to study and learn from it. But Pavlopetri is not only an archaeological site, but also a cultural treasure. Local communities have embraced the city as a symbol of their heritage and are working to protect and promote it. Efforts are underway to designate Pavlopetri as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a recognition that would help ensure its conservation in the years to come. The rediscovery of Pavlopetri has also sparked new interest in underwater archaeology as a field, inspired by the city's history. Researchers have begun exploring other submerged sites around the world, from ancient ports in the Mediterranean to sunken temples in Southeast Asia. Pavlopetri has become a beacon for those seeking to discover the secrets of the past, demonstrating that even forgotten places can harbor incredible stories. However, despite its modern importance, Pavlopetri remains a mystery. Who built it, and what led them to create such an advanced city in such a precarious place? And what lessons can we learn from their successes and failures? The history of Pavlopetri is far from over. As technology continues to evolve, so will our understanding of this ancient city. For now, it stands as a reminder of the delicate balance between humanity and nature, a balance that has defined our history and our future as we leave behind Pavlopetri. It is worth reflecting on its legacy. This was a city that thrived for thousands of years, a place where people lived, worked, and dreamed. And although its buildings have been claimed by the sea, its history endures, a story of resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring power of human civilization. Story 10. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops. The story of Pavlopetri reminds us how the sea can preserve and protect history, hiding the vestiges of ancient civilizations under its waves until they are rediscovered centuries later. But not all the ocean's mysteries leave clues. Some disappear completely, leaving us with more questions than answers. As we move from the depths of antiquity to the modern era, we encounter another enigma that has baffled sailors, historians, and researchers for more than a century. Unlike Pavlopetri, this mystery does not involve an ancient city or the slow invasion of the rising seas, but revolves around a huge ship, a wartime journey, and a disappearance so complete that no trace has ever been found. It was the year 1918, and the USS Cyclops, a colossal warship, was making a routine voyage across the Atlantic. On board were more than 300 men, thousands of tons of cargo, and a sturdy ship built to withstand the rigors of war. But somewhere between Barbados and Baltimore, the Cyclops disappeared without a trace. There were no distress signals, no wreckage, no survivors, as if the ship had been swallowed by the ocean. What happened to the USS Cyclops? Was it mechanical failure, a sudden storm, or something far more sinister? To this day, no one knows. Let's dive into the haunting story of the Cyclops, a ship that set sail into history and never returned. In the early 20th century, the United States Navy was a rising force with ambitions to project its power around the world. It was clear that naval supremacy would depend not only on warships, but also on the critical logistics that kept them operational. Enter the USS Cyclops, a giant of its time and a fundamental asset to the Navy's growing fleet. Launched in 1910, the Cyclops was one of the 4 Proteus-class colliers built specifically to transport large quantities of coal, the lifeblood of naval operations in the age of steamships. With an imposing length of 542 feet and a beam of 65 feet, the Cyclops was a floating powerhouse capable of carrying more than 12,000 tons of coal at a time. Its immense size and cargo capacity made it an engineering marvel and an indispensable tool for a navy seeking to fuel its operations across great distances. But the Cyclops was not only about its size. Its design was very advanced for its time, built to last. Its steel hull and watertight compartments were designed to withstand even the roughest seas. Inside, its enormous holds were meticulously organized to maximize cargo efficiency. And although it was not built for speed, its top speed was a modest 15 knots. It was designed for reliability. Its robust construction ensured that it could withstand the rigors of long voyages. When World War I broke out in 1914, coal was no longer the Navy's only priority. Oil was rapidly becoming the preferred fuel for warships, which detracted from the coal. But this meant that the Cyclops was obsolete, but its function changed, and it became a multi-purpose ship that transported not only fuel, but any cargo that the Navy needed, from ammunition supplies to troops. In this new role, it became a workhorse of the fleet, a ship that could be relied upon to deliver vital resources wherever they were needed. In January 1918, the Cyclops received a new mission. It was ordered to transport 10,800 tons of manganese ore from Brazil to the United States. Manganese was a key material for the war effort, essential for reinforcing the steel used in weapons and machinery. The journey would take it from Rio de Janeiro to Salvador, Brazil, and then north to Baltimore, Maryland. The Cyclops sailed from Rio without incident and arrived in Salvador in mid-February. After loading all the cargo, it began its long journey north. Its route would take it through the Caribbean, a stretch of ocean known for its calm waters and predictable climate. By all accounts, this was a routine mission that the Cyclops had completed many times before. The ship made a scheduled stop in Barbados on March 3, 1918, to refuel and allow its captain, Lieutenant Commander George Worley, to file a report. By all accounts, everything seemed normal. The Cyclops was in good condition, and there were no signs of problems. It sailed from Barbados on March 4th bound for Baltimore, with an estimated arrival date at the end of that month. But somewhere between Barbados and Baltimore, the Cyclops disappeared. It sent no distress signal or asked for help, and left no trace of its passage. The huge ship, its 300 passengers and crew, and its cargo of manganese disappeared as if swallowed by the ocean. The disappearance of a USS Cyclops was a shock to the United States Navy and the entire nation. It was not just any ship, but a huge military vessel equipped with experienced sailors and built to withstand the rigors of the sea. How could such a ship disappear without a trace? The mystery immediately became the focus of naval investigations, but the lack of evidence left everyone grasping at straws. Search efforts began as soon as the ship failed to arrive in Baltimore. Ships and airplanes tracked the planned route of the Cyclops, covering thousands of square kilometers of ocean. The ports of the East Coast, the Caribbean, and South America were alerted to be attentive for possible remains or survivors. Radio stations, a still relatively new technology, listened for possible signals from the ship, but there was nothing. No lifeboats, no remains, no oil slicks. The Cyclops seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Disappeared without a trace. The lack of physical evidence only deepened the mystery. Normally, even in catastrophic sinkings, some kind of remains, planks, lifeboats, or cargo, end up reaching the coast, but in the case of the Cyclops, the ocean remained disturbingly silent. It was as if the Atlantic had swallowed the ship. Adding to the strangeness was the fact that the Cyclops had sent no distress signal. Although wireless communication in 1918 was still rudimentary, the ship was equipped with a working radio and a trained operator. If there was time to send a distress call, why didn't they? This raised the disturbing possibility that what happened to the ship occurred so suddenly that the crew had no time to react. It has been more than a century since the USS Cyclops disappeared, but the mystery remains as compelling as ever. With technological advances and renewed interest in maritime history, modern researchers have reviewed the case in the hope of discovering new evidence or developing plausible theories that may finally explain the disappearance of the ship. One of the most recent technological advances that has rekindled interest in the Cyclops is the use of deep-sea exploration tools, such as remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and advanced sonar mapping systems. These technologies have allowed researchers to explore parts of the ocean that were previously inaccessible. Although no confirmed remains of the Cyclops have been found, these tools have discovered dozens of unknown shipwrecks in the region, demonstrating that even the largest ships can remain hidden in the immensity of the ocean. Some modern theories have focused on structural problems of the Cyclops. Historical records suggest that the ship's design may have made it vulnerable to instability when carrying much cargo. The manganese it was carrying was dense and prone to shifting if not properly secured. Even a small shift in the cargo's weight could have destabilized the ship and caused it to capsize rapidly. This theory aligns with the absence of a distress signal if the ship capsized or broke apart suddenly. The crew would not have had time to react. Another line of investigation focuses on Captain George Worley, whose leadership has long been a subject of speculation. Worley's erratic behavior and questionable decisions during previous voyages have led some to wonder if he played a role in the fate of the Cyclops. Witnesses from previous voyages described him as abrasive and unpredictable, and rumors persist that his German ancestry aroused suspicion in an era of Great War paranoia. However, there is no conclusive evidence to suggest that Worley deliberately sabotaged the ship or acted maliciously. Recent studies of records from the time have also revived the theory of enemy action during World War I. German submarines operated widely in the Atlantic, attacking Allied ships. And although there are no confirmed reports linking a submarine to the Cyclops, it is possible that its disappearance was the result of an unrecorded attack. German naval records from that time are incomplete, leaving room for speculation. However, the lack of remains or survivors remains a sticking point for this theory. Normally, even in a submarine attack, some trace of the ship would be expected. The Bermuda Triangle theory, although often dismissed by scientists, continues to captivate the public's imagination. The Cyclops disappeared in a region known for its association with mysterious disappearances, and some have speculated that the ship was the victim of a unique phenomenon in the area, from methane hydrate eruptions to giant waves and magnetic anomalies. Several natural explanations have been proposed. Although most of these theories remain unproven, they add an element of intrigue to the story of the Cyclops. One of the most compelling modern theories is the possibility that the Cyclops sank due to a combination of factors: a small structural failure aggravated by its heavy cargo, and a potentially rough sea could have triggered a chain reaction leading to its rapid sinking. This theory recognizes that the ship's disappearance may not have been caused by a single catastrophic event, but rather by a perfect storm of circumstances. The disappearance has also inspired efforts to locate its remains. Organizations specializing in maritime archaeology and underwater exploration have proposed specific searches of the ship's likely route using modern mapping technology. However, the enormous extent of the search area and the depth of the Atlantic Ocean pose significant challenges. Despite these difficulties, researchers remain hopeful that the mystery of the Cyclops will one day be solved. Until then, the USS Cyclops remains a haunting reminder of the ocean's power to hide its secrets. Whether it lies intact on the seabed or has been shattered by the elements, its story continues to inspire curiosity and speculation. For now, we are left with questions, theories, and the enduring charm of one of the history of the fate of music. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops is a stark reminder of how even the largest and most advanced ships can disappear without a trace, swallowed by the vast and unpredictable ocean. It is a mystery that has baffled historians and researchers for more than a century, leaving behind only theories and speculations. But the Cyclops is not the only ship to have suffered such a mysterious fate. Almost a decade earlier, another ship, the Waratah, often called the Titanic of the Southern Hemisphere, disappeared off the coast of South Africa. Unlike the Cyclops, the Waratah was a luxurious ocean liner designed to offer comfort and elegance. It was a symbol of modernity and progress, a ship built to conquer the seas. But in 1909, during its second voyage, the Waratah disappeared, taking its 211 passengers and crew. What happened to the Waratah? Was it a design flaw, a violent storm, or was something more sinister? Like the Cyclops, the Waratah left no remains, no survivors, no definitive answers. Let's dive into the history of the Waratah, a ship that set sail in style and was never seen again. At the beginning of the 20th century, Australia was experiencing a wave of optimism. A growing economy, flourishing trade routes, and an increased demand for luxury travel were reshaping the country's connections with the world. The ships were not only commercial vessels, but symbols of progress and pride that united continents and carried people towards new opportunities. Among the emerging stars of this era was the Waratah, a ship designed to embody the ambition and elegance of that time. Built in 1908 by the Blue Anchor Line, the Waratah was a masterpiece of Edwardian engineering. With 465 feet in length and a weight of more than 9,000 tons, it was the largest and most sophisticated ship ever commissioned by the company. Its dual-purpose design was intended to achieve a perfect balance between luxury and utility. On deck, it offered first-class passengers opulent comfort on par with the best ocean liners of the time. Ornate dining rooms, luxurious lounges, and state-of-the-art cabins catered to the wealthy elite, while more modest accommodations provided comfort to second-class travelers. But the Waratah was not just a passenger liner. Below deck, its enormous holds were designed to transport Australia's most valuable exports, such as wool, meat, and precious metals, making it a vital link in the nation's trade network with Europe. Its combination of grandeur and practicality earned it the nickname Titanic of the Southern Hemisphere, a ship that represented the pinnacle of Edwardian ingenuity. Its maiden voyage from London to Sydney in late 1908 was a success. Passengers were delighted with its luxurious interiors and smooth sailing. The Blue Anchor Line had every reason to celebrate its flagship, which was quickly becoming a favorite of travelers and merchants alike. In July 1909, the Warada readied for its second voyage, setting sail from Sydney with 211 passengers and crew on board. The ship was loaded with goods destined for European markets, and its itinerary included stops in Durban and Cape Town before venturing into the Atlantic. The mood was good as it sailed through the Indian Ocean, and passengers enjoyed the amenities and comfort of the ship. However, as the Warada approached the south coast of Africa, concerns began to arise. Some passengers reported that the ship felt unstable in the rough sea, with a greater inclination than expected. Others spoke of a disturbing sensation, a subtle discomfort that they could not explain. These observations were ignored by the crew, but would later take on a chilling significance. On July 26, 1909, the Warada set sail from Durban bound for Cape Town. It would be its last trip. The Warada's departure from Durban was routine. Both passengers and crew were looking forward to arriving in Cape Town, a key stop before the long journey north to London. The weather was mild, the ship was well stocked, and there were no immediate signs of problems for those on board. It seemed like one more stage of the trip. Approximately at 6 p.m. on July 27th, the Warada was sighted by the Clan MacIntyre, a cargo ship sailing the same route. The two vessels exchanged routine signals, and the Warada appeared to be in good condition, steaming along the South African coast. This brief interaction would mark the last confirmed sighting of the Warada. Once it disappeared from view, it was never seen again. When the Warada did not arrive in Cape Town, the first reactions were cautious, as delays at sea were not uncommon in 1909, especially along the south coast of Africa, where unpredictable weather and strong currents posed a constant challenge to sailors. But as the days turned into weeks without news from the Warada, concern turned into alarm. Something was terribly wrong. The Blue Anchor Line of the shipowner of the ship quickly launched a search operation. Ships from its fleet and other vessels operating in the area were diverted to comb the waters between Durban and Cape Town. The search extended over hundreds of kilometers of the treacherous coast, covering the area where the Warada was last seen by the Clan MacIntyre. The crews were ordered to search for any remains, lifeboats, or survivors, but the search yielded no results. Adding to the difficulty was the nature of the Agulhas Current, one of the strongest ocean currents in the world, which flows south along the east coast of Africa and joins the cold waters of the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, creating a volatile area of ocean. Shipwrecks in this region often leave few traces, as the remains are swept away or dragged into deep submarine canyons. By the end of August 1909, hope of finding survivors began to fade. Despite the lack of evidence, rumors began to circulate. Some claimed to have seen mysterious lights at sea, suggesting that the Warada might still be adrift with its passengers and crew alive, but left to their fate. Others speculated that the ship had run aground on a hidden reef or island, awaiting rescue. Theories went from plausible to fantastic, but none offered concrete answers. In September, the Blue Anchor Line organized a second search, this time with the participation of the Wakefield steamer. The Wakefield retraced the Warada's route, stopping at all known hazards and searching for signs of the missing ship. Once again, the effort was in vain. No remains, no corpses, no clues were found. The Warada had disappeared completely, as if the ocean had swallowed it whole. Over the years, several more attempts were made to locate the ship using modern technology like sonar maps and underwater exploration, used to scan the seabed off the coast of South Africa, but the difficult conditions in the area have made the search extremely difficult. The waters near the Agulhas Bank are full of shipwreck remains, some centuries old, making it difficult to distinguish the Warada from other lost ships. To this day, the Warada remains missing. Its disappearance is one of the most enduring mysteries in maritime history, a disturbing reminder of how vast and unpredictable the ocean can truly be. The mystery of the Warada has captivated historians, maritime experts, and enthusiasts for over a century. With no wreckage or survivors to provide answers, the ship's fate has given rise to countless theories, ranging from the plausible to the fantastic. Here we will explore the most prominent explanations for the disappearance of the Warada. One of the most accepted theories is that the Warada suffered from serious design flaws. Reports from its maiden voyage in 1908 described the ship as unstable, prone to listing, and difficult to navigate in rough seas. Passengers and crew pointed out that the ship seemed too heavy at the top, with a high center of gravity that made it vulnerable to capsizing. The design of the Warada was ambitious, tempting, as it combined luxurious facilities with huge cargo holds. Some experts believe that this combination may have made the ship inherently unstable, especially when it carried a lot of cargo. On its last voyage, it carried a significant amount of cargo, including tons of tallow, coal, and heavy machinery. If this cargo shifted during rough seas, it could have caused the ship to capsize quickly, leaving no time to send a distress signal or evacuate. But the waters off the south coast of Africa are known for their unpredictability. The Agulhas current, combined with strong winds and storms, can create huge rogue waves, walls of water up to 30 meters high that appear without warning. These waves are known to have sunk even the most robust ships, and the Warada would have been especially vulnerable if it was already unstable. A rogue wave could have hit the Warada with devastating force, overwhelming it and dragging it to the bottom of the sea before the crew could react. This theory is supported by testimonies from other ships that encountered adverse conditions in the area at the time of the disappearance of the Warada. Although the captain of the Warada, Joshua Allure, was an experienced sailor, human error cannot be ruled out. Navigating the treacherous waters of South Africa requires constant vigilance, and even a small miscalculation could have had catastrophic consequences. If the Warada deviated too close to the coast or encountered an unknown danger, it could have sunk or been shipwrecked. Some testimonies suggest that Captain Allure may have been overconfident in the ship's capabilities, dismissing concerns about its stability. Others point to the possibility that a lack of communication or defective equipment contributed to the disaster. Although less likely, the idea of sabotage or foul play has been suggested over the years. The Warada was carrying valuable cargo, including precious metals, which could have made it a target for pirates. However, no evidence of such an attack has ever been found, and piracy in the region was rare at that time. The disappearance of the Warada has also fueled more fantastic theories, such as the idea that the ship was swallowed by a supernatural force or entered another dimension. Some have linked its fate to the legends of the Bermuda Triangle, despite it disappearing thousands of kilometers away. Although these theories lack scientific basis, they highlight the eternal charm of maritime mysteries and the human desire to explain the unexplainable. The simplest explanation is that the Warada lies at the bottom of the ocean, and its remains have not been discovered due to the difficult conditions in the search area. The Agulhas Bank is a treacherous region with strong currents, deep canyons, and a history of shipwrecks. It is possible that the Warada rests in one of these canyons, hidden from view and waiting to be found. Despite exhaustive searches and countless theories, the fate of the Warada remains unknown. Its disappearance is a stark reminder of the ocean's power to keep its secrets, even in an era of advanced technology. For the families of the 211 people on board, the lack of closure is a disturbing legacy, a question that remains unanswered more than a century later. The Warada disappeared without further ado, leaving behind a mystery that continues to attract people more than a century later. Its story is not only about what might have happened to it, but also about what we have learned since then, about how it changed our way of thinking about ship design, and how it has kept researchers looking for answers in the depths even today. When the Warada disappeared, it forced people to ask difficult questions about ship design at that time. Engineers were pushing the limits by building larger, more ambitious ships that could do more than ever, but sometimes ambition trumps caution. The Warada was intended to balance luxury with utility, serving as both a passenger and a cargo ship. However, that balance may have been its undoing. Reports from its maiden voyage already pointed to problems. People said it leaned a lot in rough seas and seemed too heavy at the top. These concerns became a case study on what not to do when designing ships. Engineers began to pay much more attention to weight distribution and stability, lessons that remain fundamental today. The tragedy also highlighted how dangerous it is to cut corners or ignore early warning signs. It's one thing to hear that a ship may look a little strange in the water, but it's quite another to ignore it and set sail again in unpredictable seas. The story of the Warada is a stark reminder of how quickly things can go wrong. The Warada has earned a permanent place in the Hall of Maritime Mysteries. It is often mentioned alongside other legendary disappearances, such as that of the Mary Celeste or the Flying Dutchman. Part of what makes its story so fascinating is the complete lack of evidence. No remains, no lifeboats, nothing at all. It is as if it had simply evaporated. That kind of mystery captures the imagination as few stories can. Throughout the years, its disappearance has inspired countless books, documentaries, and investigations, and with each passing decade, the fascination grows. Its story is not only that of a ship, it is a reminder of how vast and unpredictable the ocean is. Even in the modern era, with all our technology, the sea can still keep its secrets. The search for the Warada has not ceased, and modern technology is providing researchers with tools that would have been unimaginable in 1909. Today we have advanced sonar systems, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and even underwater drones that can map the ocean floor with incredible precision. These tools have already discovered shipwrecks that were believed lost forever, so there is reason to hope that one day they can find the Warada. Sonar mapping is one of the most promising methods. By scanning the seabed around the Agulhas Bank, the last known area where the Warada was seen, researchers can identify shapes and anomalies that could indicate a shipwreck. The waters off the coast of South Africa are very difficult to explore due to strong currents and submarine canyons. But sonar overcomes those challenges. If a promising target is found, unmanned underwater vehicles, ROVs, can be sent to investigate. These underwater robots can capture high-definition images and even recover artifacts, allowing researchers to see clearly what is down there. The Warada could still be intact on the seabed, waiting to be discovered. Machine learning and artificial intelligence are also changing the game. These technologies can analyze huge amounts of sonar data and detect patterns that might indicate a shipwreck. Instead of searching blindly, researchers can focus their efforts on the most promising areas. Despite all this technology, finding the Warada is easier said than done. The Agulhas Current is one of the strongest in the world, capable of dragging the remains of a shipwreck kilometers from where the ship originally sank. The seabed in the area is also full of other remains, some centuries old, making it difficult to distinguish one ship from another. Funding is another obstacle. Deep water searches are not cheap, and without solid clues, it is difficult to convince governments or private organizations to invest in such an uncertain undertaking. But despite these obstacles, the Warada remains a tempting target for researchers. What makes people keep coming back to the story of the Warada is more than just the mystery, the human element. The 211 people on board were not just passengers or crew members. They were families, workers, and travelers, all with their own hopes and stories. Their disappearance is a reminder of how relentless the sea can be and how little control we have when faced with its power. Their story also touches something universal: our fascination with the unknown. How could such a large ship disappear without a trace? What happened in its final moments? These questions not only haunt maritime historians, but resonate with anyone who has been curious about the mysteries of the deep. And although we still do not have answers, the search for the Warada continues. Each new technological advance brings us closer to solving the enigma. Perhaps one day we will finally discover what happened to the Titanic of the Southern Hemisphere. Until then, the Warada will remain a symbol of the ocean's enduring power to hide its secrets. Story 12. The Phantom Submarines of the Second World War. Music As the story of the Warada leaves us wondering about the vast and unpredictable ocean, it is time to focus our attention on another maritime mystery, one that did not arise from the era of luxurious ocean liners, but from the shadowy depths of World War II. This is the story of the phantom submarines, invisible predators that lurked in coastal waters, baffled Allied forces, and, to this day, leave us wondering what really happened beneath the waves. The Second World War was not only fought on the battlefields and in the skies, but also fought in the vast oceans, where what was at stake was just as important and the dangers just as unpredictable. From the icy waters of the North Atlantic to the tropical expanses of the Pacific, submarines played a key role. These stealthy and silent predators lurked beneath the waves, disrupting supply chains, sinking enemy ships, and on occasion, completely changing the course of battles. But in the midst of this high-stakes submarine warfare, strange accounts began to emerge, literally and figuratively. Reports appeared from merchant sailors and military officers of submarines operating where they should not have been. These were not just rumors whispered among sailors. The sightings were documented, tracked, and, in naval crews, merchant sailors and military officers of submarines operating where they should not have been. These were not just rumors whispered among sailors. The sightings were documented, tracked, and, in some cases, attacked by Allied forces, but the objects responsible seemed to defy logic. The term phantom submarine began to spread, especially among the crews who had experienced these mysterious encounters firsthand. These were not the typical U-boats or Japanese I-class submarines. They seemed faster, more maneuverable, and able to disappear without a trace. Sometimes they inexplicably disappeared from radar screens, moving at speeds that the technology of that time could not explain. Other times, ships attacked a target, launched depth charges, and found nothing. No remains, no oil slicks, no debris. It was as if these vessels had dissolved into the ocean. Adding to the unease was the global reach of these sightings in the North Atlantic. Crews patrolling the icy waters of Iceland and Scotland reported strange sonar contacts that seemed to be playing with them. In the North Sea, cargo ships were followed by dark, silent silhouettes. In the warmer waters of the Pacific, U.S. destroyers encountered underwater vessels that moved so fast they could not be pursued. It was not about isolated incidents, but about a pattern that extended through all the theaters of operations and chronologies of the war. For naval commanders, these reports raised a chilling question. What were these submarines? Were they experimental weapons, enemy ships, or something else entirely? And perhaps the most disturbing of all, why could they not be caught? One of the first and most disturbing encounters took place off Iceland in 1942. A British destroyer, patrolling the area in search of German OTS, detected an unusual contact on sonar. The object was large, bigger than any registered submarine, and moved with an agility impossible for such a size. Thinking that they had come across a new type of enemy submarine, the crew prepared for battle. Depth charges were launched, the explosions echoed in the icy waters, and then, when the crew scanned the surface, there was nothing. No remains, no oil slicks, no trace that a submarine had been there. It was not an isolated incident. Around the same time, a Norwegian freighter reported being followed for days by an unidentified submarine in the North Sea. The crew described how the submarine seemed to emerge at night, following the ship at a distance with a ghostly presence. Attempts to call for help by radio were frustrated by static interference, a tactic often used by German submarines to block communications. But when Allied ships arrived to investigate, they found no trace of the mysterious vessel, which disappeared as suddenly as it appeared. In the Pacific, the encounters became stranger. Near the Guadalupe Canal in 1943, an American destroyer detected an object moving quickly under the waves with sonar. The crew, trained to face Japanese submarines, was stunned by the speed and evasive maneuvers of the target speed and its evasive maneuvers. Torpedoes were fired, but the target seemed to predict every movement, dodging each shot. Finally, the contact disappeared completely from the radar, leaving the destroyer's crew baffled. The pattern of these encounters was always the same. An unidentified submarine behaving in a way that defied the capabilities of any known vessel, followed by a sudden disappearance. These were not the kind of encounters that could be easily dismissed as false alarms or imagination. The crews were trained to recognize submarines and to distinguish between natural phenomena and real threats. The precision and consistency of these reports made them difficult to ignore, but not all the encounters were purely technical. Some sailors described strange sensations of being watched, even when no submarine was detected. There were accounts of disturbing lights under the waves that shone dimly before fading into the depths. In one case, the hydrophone operator of a ship tasked with listening for submarine activity reported hearing what he described as faint metallic whispers echoing in the water. The sound source was never identified, adding to the mystery. The areas where these encounters occurred, such as the North Atlantic, were a hot spot for sightings, especially in regions known for their rough seas and unpredictable weather. The waters off South Africa, near the Agulhas Bank, were also the scene of multiple unexplained incidents, as were some areas of the Pacific near Japan and the Philippines. These regions had one factor in common. They were vast, remote, and difficult to patrol effectively, making them ideal hiding places for anything or anyone wanting to avoid being detected. A particularly chilling encounter occurred near the Uian Islands in 1944. A Japanese cargo ship reported that it had been followed by an unidentified submarine for more than 48 hours. Unable to get rid of their pursuer, the crew ended up abandoning the ship for fear of an imminent attack. But when Allied forces arrived to investigate, they found the cargo ship adrift and intact. The mysterious submarine had vanished without a trace. As the reports accumulated, so did the questions. If these submarines were experimental designs of the enemy, why were they not used more widely? If they were not enemy ships, what were they? And, perhaps most disturbing, how could something so large and advanced disappear without a trace again and again? Even after the war had ended, the mystery did not fade. Declassified naval records revealed even more encounters, some of which had been kept secret to avoid causing panic or revealing weaknesses in naval defense systems. These records offered no answers, only more tantalizing pieces of the puzzle. The ghost submarines remained ghosts that slipped through the cracks of history and logic. Reports of ghost submarines during World War II have puzzled historians and naval enthusiasts for decades. Unlike traditional wartime mysteries, which often point to a single cause, the ghost submarine phenomenon is so varied and strange that it has given rise to a number of theories, some based on fact and others straying into the fantastic. One of the most accepted theories is that these ghost submarines were experimental enemy designs that were part of a secret arms race that pushed the limits of technology. Germany and Japan, in particular, were known to be working on advanced submarine prototypes. The German Type 21 submarine, for example, was a revolutionary design with superior speed and underwater range, capable of operating longer without surfacing. This electric boat was considered years ahead of its time and is often cited as the model for modern submarines. Similarly, the Japanese I-400 class submarines were marvels of engineering. They were the largest submarines built during World War II and designed to carry and launch aircraft, a concept unheard of then. Could some of these advanced submarines have been secretly deployed during the war, operating in waters where they were unexpected? It is possible, but even these cutting-edge designs had limitations. They could not match the speeds or evasive maneuvers described in many encounters, leaving this theory with unanswered questions. Another plausible theory is that these submarines belonged to neutral nations or rebel operators carrying out covert missions. Sweden, for example, maintained a fleet of submarines during the war, and its position in the Baltic Sea made it a key player in intelligence gathering. Some speculate that neutral countries may have operated submarines in disputed waters, either to spy or protect their own interests. However, this theory also raises questions. Neutral nations would have been cautious about being discovered operating in war zones, since it could have endangered their neutrality. Furthermore, there is scant evidence suggesting that any neutral or rebel submarine was capable of performing the feats described in these encounters. Skeptics argue that many of these sightings can be explained by misidentifications. The conditions of war, stress, fatigue, and poor visibility could have led sailors to mistake natural phenomena for enemy submarines. Large schools of fish, underwater volcanic activity, or even drifting debris could have been misinterpreted as a submarine's movements. The technology of that time also had limitations. Sonar and radar systems were relatively primitive by today's standards, prone to false positives and technical failures. Some sonar operators might have picked up reflections from underwater terrain or biological noise and mistaken them for enemy vessels. This theory makes sense for some incidents, but does not explain the more detailed and coherent accounts. The precise descriptions of evasive maneuvers, signal interference, and other sophisticated behaviors are difficult to dismiss as simple errors or illusions. Then, there are the theories that delve into the unknown. Some researchers have suggested that these submarines could have been part of secret projects so advanced that they remain classified even today. Could governments have developed technology during World War II that was decades ahead of its time, only to keep it hidden after the war? It is not impossible. Many Cold War innovations originated in wartime experimental projects, and it is conceivable that some designs were abandoned or considered too risky to reveal. Others take this theory even further and speculate that the phantom submarines were not human creations at all. The idea of unidentified submerged objects, essentially underwater UFOs, has gained followers in recent years. Its defenders argue that the speed, agility, and elusiveness of these ships could point to technology beyond human capabilities. Although this theory is far from mainstream, it underscores the mystery surrounding these encounters. Another intriguing possibility is that some of these reports were part of deliberate disinformation campaigns during World War II. Psychological warfare played an important role, and spreading rumors about advanced enemy technology could have sown fear and confusion among Allied forces. It is possible that some reports were exaggerated or fabricated for this purpose. However, this theory does not explain the widespread nature of the sightings or the consistency of the descriptions. The phantom submarines of World War II have left a lasting impression not only on naval history, but also on our understanding of the ocean as a vast and mysterious frontier. These encounters remind us how little we really know about the depths and what might lurk there. Despite decades of technological advances, the ocean still holds secrets that defy explanation. Reports of phantom submarines had a significant impact during the war and influenced naval strategies and policies. The fear of the unknown or superior technology forced navies to adapt and invest heavily in research in sonars, anti-submarine tactics, and countermeasures. These advances laid the foundation for modern submarine warfare and the technologies we rely on today. The mystery also highlighted the challenges posed by ocean surveillance, even with today's advanced sonar systems and satellite tracking. Vast expanses of the ocean remain virtually unmonitored. The idea that something or someone can operate undetected in these waters is not only plausible, but likely. In recent years, renewed interest in the mysteries of World War II has led researchers to revisit the phantom submarine phenomenon. Declassified military records, combined with advances in sonar and underwater exploration, have provided new data on some incidents, but many remain unresolved. Could the phantom submarines have been prototypes that sank or were dismantled before their secrets were revealed? Could they still be resting on the ocean floor, waiting to be discovered? These questions continue to drive searches and investigations, keeping the mystery alive. What makes the story of the phantom submarine so fascinating? Its universality. It's not just about war or technology. It's about the human fascination with the unknown. These submarines represent more than a wartime enigma. They're symbols of the ocean's enduring power to hide its secrets, from the sailors who glimpse shadows beneath the waves to the modern researchers who scan the seabed. The allure of these mysteries remains as strong as ever, and as long as the ocean continues to conceal its depths, the story of the phantom submarines will remain a haunting reminder of what we have yet to discover. Story 13. The Haunting Mystery of the Cas. Music. 2. As the story of the phantom submarines fades into the depths of maritime legend, we focus on a mystery that feels hauntingly close to us. The story of a ship found adrift in calm waters with no trace of its crew. This is not a story of wartime shadows or technological enigmas, but of a modern ghost ship that raises questions as disturbing as they are unanswered. This is the story of the Cas 2, a 98-meter catamaran found hauntingly abandoned in the clear waters of the Great Barrier Reef in 2007, often called the Mary Celeste of Australia. The Cas 2 has baffled both researchers and armchair detectives. How could an experienced crew disappear from a stable, well-equipped ship in perfect sailing conditions? What happened to the 3 men on board? Dive into the mystery of the Cas 2 and the strange circumstances surrounding its disappearance. The Cas 2 was not a ship destined for world headlines. It was a modest but capable 98-meter catamaran of the type one would expect to see quietly plying the turquoise waters of the Australian coast. Built for comfort and ease of use, it was perfect for recreational sailing and long coastal voyages. Owned by Derek Batten, 56 years old, the boat was his pride and joy, a vessel destined to explore the impressive Australian coast, but that did not stop it disappearing in one of this country's biggest maritime mysteries. On April 20th, 2007, Derek set sail on what should have been the adventure of his life, accompanied by his 2 close friends, brothers Peter and James Tunstead. Derek was an experienced sailor who had spent years sailing Australian waters. The Tunstead brothers, while less experienced, were no strangers to the sea. Together, the trio planned to sail the Cas 2 from Shoal Harbour in Queensland to Perth on the west coast, a trip that would take them through some of the most beautiful and, at times, challenging waters in the world. The plan was simple: follow the coast, stop at ports along the way, and enjoy the views. The trip did not need to be rushed. It was more about enjoying the experience, the camaraderie, and the beauty of the open sea. For Derek, Peter, and James, it was an opportunity to relax, bond, and contemplate the impressive views of the Great Barrier Reef and beyond. They stocked the boat with provisions, checked the equipment, and ensured that the Cas 2 was seaworthy for the long journey ahead. April 15th, 2007, dawned clear and sunny. The Cas 2 left port with sails unfurled and the crew relaxed and smiling. Local witnesses saw the 3 men on deck waving as they passed by. The sea was calm, the weather forecast favorable, and the mood was high. For those on land, it was just another quiet day in paradise, but the sea, as often happens, can turn paradise into something different entirely. When the Cas 2 disappeared over the horizon, unknowingly, it had embarked on a journey that would baffle investigators, torment maritime historians, and leave a trail of unanswered questions. 3 days later, on April 18th, 2007, a helicopter pilot flying over the Great Barrier Reef spotted the Cas 2. At first glance, it seemed to be sailing as expected, with its white sails visible against the infinite blue of the ocean. But on closer observation, the pilot noticed that something was wrong. The boat was not sailing straight, but was drifting aimlessly, with the sails flapping in the wind. The sighting was reported, and the maritime authorities quickly sent a rescue team to investigate. When they boarded the Cas 2, they found a scene as disturbing as baffling. The boat was completely intact, with no signs of damage or distress. The engine was running with a soft hum, as if the crew had just walked away. The GPS and radio systems on board were working, but the most important thing was missing: its crew. The interior of the cabin seemed frozen in time, with a half-drunk cup of coffee on the table, next to a pile of neatly folded clothes and an open laptop with the screen slightly lit. The content had recent entries, the last one recorded just a few hours before the Cas 2 was found in the kitchen. The utensils and provisions were carefully stored and untouched. A fishing line hung from the back of the boat, still attached to a lure that shone in the sun. However, despite this disturbing normality, there were some small clues that pointed to something having happened. One of the sails was torn and waving erratically in the breeze. A life raft was missing, although the life jackets were still on board. But apart from that, there was nothing to suggest what might have happened to Derek, Peter, and James. There were no blood stains, no signs of struggle or damage to the boat indicating a collision or capsize. It was as if the men had simply vanished into thin air. For the rescue team, the scene was deeply disturbing. The scenario was not an abandoned boat, but a fully functioning vessel floating quietly in calm waters with all its systems intact. The absence of the crew only increased the mystery. Why had they abandoned ship? Where had they gone? And why hadn't they used the distress signals or the emergency equipment on board? The authorities immediately launched a search and rescue operation, combing the waters around the Cass in search of any trace of the missing men. Planes, helicopters, and boats scour the area, covering hundreds of square kilometers. But the ocean is vast, and the Great Barrier Reef, with its maze of reefs and channels, is one of the most complex and difficult regions to track. Days turned into weeks, and the search yielded no results. No corpses, no remains of the ship, no answers. The discovery of the Cass II and the absence of its crew caused shock in Australia. The media quickly dubbed it the Mary Celeste of Australia, comparing the case to that of the 19th century ghost ship found adrift in the Atlantic. The similarities were striking. Both ships were found intact, with no trace of their crew, and both left behind a series of unanswered questions that continue to baffle investigators to this day. For the families of Derek, Peter, and James, the discovery of the Cass II did not mean any closure, but marked the beginning of a long and agonizing wait for answers that have not yet arrived. How could three experienced sailors disappear from a stable and seaworthy boat in calm conditions? What happened in those 3 days between their departure and the ship's discovery? And perhaps most disturbing, why did they abandon the ship? The mystery of the Cass intensified as investigators delved into the details. The absence of clear evidence meant that every piece of data, or lack thereof, became crucial to understanding what might have happened. But instead of narrowing the possibilities, each new clue seemed to open up more questions. The authorities examined the ship's GPS records in the hope of reconstructing the events leading up to the crew's disappearance. The record showed that the Cass II had been sailing normally until April 16th, the day after leaving Shoal Harbor. That day, the ship's movements became erratic. Instead of following a straight course, it seemed to be drifting aimlessly, sometimes circling in place. This pattern continued until its discovery on April 18th. One of the most baffling clues was the fishing line hanging from the back of the boat. This suggested that at least one of the men had fished before disappearing. Could someone have fallen overboard while trying to haul in a fish? If so, why didn't the others throw a lifeline or use emergency equipment to save him? And why were the life jackets untouched? The state of the boat offered few answers. The broken sails suggested that there had been bad weather or a sudden storm, but the weather reports of the area indicated mild conditions during the time elapsed since the disappearance. The running engine and the carefully maintained cabin indicated that whatever had happened was sudden and unexpected. There were no signs that the men had prepared to abandon ship, which made their absence even more disconcerting. The possibility of a criminal act was also considered. Could the crew have been intercepted by another vessel? Although piracy is rare in Australian waters, it could not be completely ruled out. However, the ship showed no signs of struggle, and there were no missing valuables, so the idea of an external threat seemed unlikely, although it could not be completely ruled out. Then, there was the disturbing idea of an accidental mishap. The location of the C2 near the Great Barrier Reef raised the possibility that the crew had been swept away by a giant wave or a sudden gust of wind. The broken sail could support this theory, suggesting that the ship had encountered more adverse conditions than had been initially reported. But, again, why didn't the men use the life jackets or activate a distress signal? However, the most chilling theory was that the three men could have been victims of a series of small, unrelated events that became a spiral of disasters. Perhaps one of them fell overboard while fishing, and the others, in their attempt to save him, also lost their lives. This chain of events would explain the disturbing normality of the scene on board. The engine running, the clothes carefully folded, the the open laptop. It was not the result of a single catastrophic event, but of a slow denouement that left the ship adrift and its crew missing. Despite exhaustive investigations, no definitive answers have ever been found. The ocean, vast and implacable, keeps its secrets well. The Kaz remains a disturbing reminder of how even the most experienced sailors can disappear without a trace, leaving behind only questions. The Kaz has earned a place in maritime tradition, often compared to the infamous Mary Celeste. Both stories share a disturbing similarity: intact vessels found adrift with their crews mysteriously absent. But while the Mary Celeste was a 19th-century enigma, the Kaz II is a modern mystery that unfolds in an era of advanced technology and communication. The fact that such a disappearance could occur in 2007, in calm conditions and with a well-equipped ship, makes it even more disturbing for the families of Derek, Peter, and James. The Kaz II is a symbol of pain and unanswered questions. The ship itself, now forever linked to their memory, serves as a stark reminder of how quickly the sea can go from beautiful to deadly. Despite exhaustive searches and investigations, no trace of the men has ever been found. For their loved ones, the lack of closure is a wound that time cannot heal. The Kaz II has also become a warning to sailors and adventurers, as it underscores the importance of preparation, vigilance, and understanding the unpredictable nature of the ocean. Even the most experienced sailors, equipped with the best technology, are not immune to the dangers of the sea. The state of the ship, impeccable and functional, but disturbingly empty, highlights the thin line that separates safety and disaster. In the years since its discovery, the Kaz II has captured the public's imagination. Documentaries, books, and articles have explored its mystery, offering theories and speculations, but without concrete answers. The story continues to intrigue both maritime historians and mystery enthusiasts. A ghost ship adrift in the annals of nautical history, in an era of satellite tracking and advanced underwater exploration. One wonders if modern technology may someday solve the mystery of the Kaz II. Although the ship has been thoroughly examined, the vast waters surrounding the Great Barrier Reef remain largely unexplored. Advances in sonar mapping and autonomous underwater vehicles, AUV, could provide new insights into the area and reveal clues that have remained hidden for more than a decade. In addition, modern data analysis techniques could be applied to GPS records and weather data from the time of the disappearance, creating a more detailed picture of the events leading up to April 18, 2007. Perhaps these tools could discover a pattern or anomaly that has been overlooked. But even with these advances, the ocean remains a formidable and mysterious place. The Kaz II and its missing crew serve as a stark reminder that some mysteries may never be solved. The sea, vast and unknowable, guards its secrets with an unbreakable grip. Story 14, The Treasure of the Flower of Lamar. As the story of the Kaz II fades into the immensity of maritime tradition, we turn our journey towards a tale that mixes history, adventure, and the charm of unimaginable wealth. It is the story of one of the most famous treasure ships in history, a ship so laden with gold and riches that its loss still resonates through the centuries. Unlike ghost ships that mysteriously disappear, the fate of this ship is known, but it has never been found. Its name was FL of Lamar. The Fleur de Lamar was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of the age of discovery, a floating vault that transported the spoils of conquest and a key piece of the maritime empire of Portugal. When it sank off the coast of Sumatra in 1511, it took with it one of the greatest treasures ever amassed, a treasure so vast that treasure hunters still pursue it today. What happened to the Fleur de Lamar, and why has its treasure remained hidden for more than 500 years? Let's prepare for one of the most legendary shipwrecks of all time. To understand the story of the Fleur de Lamar, one must go back to an era in which the seas were the highways of empires. At the beginning of the 16th century, it was the golden age of exploration, an era in which nations like Spain and Portugal competed to map unexplored territories, claim distant lands, and establish lucrative trade routes. The oceans were not only barriers, but but opportunities that offered riches beyond imagination to those daring enough to navigate their dangers. Portugal was at the forefront of this maritime revolution with its advanced shipbuilding techniques, its skilled navigators, and royal support, having forged an impressive empire that stretched from Europe to India, Southeast Asia, and Africa. The explorers brought spices, silks, and precious metals, raw materials that would fuel the European economy for centuries. At the heart of this empire was a fleet of ships designed for long voyages and heavy loads. Among them was the Flor do Mar, a huge Portuguese carrack built in 1502 with more than 400 tons. It was a marvel of its time, a testament to the ingenuity and ambition of Portuguese shipbuilders. Its size made it ideal for transporting large quantities of goods, but also made it difficult to maneuver. The ship was known to be very heavy and prone to instability in rough seas. Despite this defect, it was a workhorse of the Portuguese Empire, transporting valuable cargo between the colonies and the mother country. The Flor do Mar was not just a merchant ship. It was a symbol of Portugal's dominance at sea. Its voyages were more than commercial enterprises. They were political statements that showed the empire's ability to conquer lands and control world trade. In 1511, the ship had already been in service for almost a decade. It was a veteran of the high seas. That year, the ship was assigned to a mission of unprecedented importance. The Portuguese forces, led by the formidable Alonso de Albuquerque, had captured the Sultanate of Malacca, a prosperous commercial center and a key link in the spice trade. The victory was a major blow that consolidated Portugal's control over Southeast Asia and opened new routes for its merchants. As part of the spoils of the conquest, the Flor do Mar was loaded with an extraordinary treasure: gold, jewels, and artifacts of incalculable value taken from the rulers of Malacca. The value of this cargo was astonishing, even by today's standards. It was not just wealth, it was a demonstration of Portugal's new power and influence. The treasure was to be delivered to King Manuel in Lisbon, a gift that would consolidate his authority and celebrate the achievements of the empire. For Albuquerque, this mission was more than just a trip, it was an opportunity to secure his legacy. But when the Flor do Mar set sail, the vast and unpredictable ocean had other plans. When the Flor do Mar departed from Malacca in November 1511, its mission was clear: to carry the spoils of the conquest back to Portugal. The ship was loaded with more treasures than it had ever transported. Gold, silver, pearls, and jewels filled its hold, while priceless artifacts from the royal court of Malacca were carefully guarded. It was a fortune so immense that it could have financed armies, built palaces, or even changed the balance of power in Europe. But the ship not only carried treasures on board. Also Alonso de Albuquerque and a small contingent of his men, exhausted but triumphant after their campaign in Southeast Asia. For Albuquerque, the Flor do Mar not only represented the return home, but the culmination of his achievements. When the ship entered the Strait of Malacca, he probably believed that he was approaching the end of a successful chapter in his career. However, the Strait of Malacca is one of the most dangerous waterways in the world. Even today, its treacherous currents, shifting sandbanks, and sudden storms make it a challenge for sailors. In the 16th century, navigating the strait was an even greater test, especially for a ship as heavy as the Flor do Mar. Its size, although advantageous for transporting cargo, made it difficult to handle in narrow or shallow waters. The first days of the trip passed without incident. The weather was calm, and the ship advanced steadily through the strait. But when the Flor do Mar approached the coast of Sumatra, conditions began to change. A storm broke out, bringing strong winds and torrential rains. For Albuquerque and his crew, this was a familiar challenge, as they had faced storms before and had always emerged unscathed. But this time the combination of the ship's excessive cargo and the unpredictable sea created a perfect storm that ended in disaster. As the wind howled and the waves grew, the Flor do Mar struggled to stay on course. The crew worked desperately to keep the ship stable, adjusting the sails and trying to avoid the dangers. But the force of the storm was too great, and the ship veered off course. Its enormous hull was vulnerable to the changing currents of the strait. Late at night, on November 20th, the catastrophe occurred. The Flor de Mar collided with a reef, and its hull splintered against the jagged rocks. Water entered the ship, flooding the cargo hold and threatening to sink it. The crew rushed to save what they could, but the situation was desperate. The ship was sinking, and the treasure that had been loaded so carefully was now at the mercy of the sea. Albuquerque and a handful of survivors managed to escape in a lifeboat, sailing through the storm to reach the coast of Sumatra. But for most of the crew and the treasure, the Flor de Mar was a watery grave. When the storm subsided and the first lights of dawn illuminated the strait, the ship had disappeared, swallowed by the ocean. The sinking of the Flor de Mar was a devastating loss for Portugal. The treasure it was carrying would never reach Lisbon, and its remains became one of the most coveted prizes in maritime history. However, the exact location of the ship was never confirmed, and despite centuries of searching, the Flor de Mar remains undiscovered to this day. The last voyage of the Flor de Mar is a story of ambition and arrogance, a reminder of how even the most powerful empires can be humbled by the forces of nature. But it is also a story of mystery that continues to captivate the imagination of treasure hunters, historians, and adventurers. What happened to the treasure? Could it still be out there, waiting to be found? The loss of the Flor de Mar and its legendary cargo has given rise to centuries of theories and speculation. The ship sank in 1511, but what happened to its treasure? It remains an enticing mystery. Despite numerous attempts to locate the wreck, the riches it carried have never been recovered. Historians, treasure hunters, and maritime experts have tried to unravel the enigma, offering various theories that reflect the appeal and complexity of this centuries-old mystery. One of the most prominent theories suggests the treasure still lies in the Strait of Malacca, buried under layers of silt and sand. The strait is known for its changing seabed, powerful currents, and treacherous conditions, making it one of the most difficult places in the world to carry out underwater searches. Some researchers believe that the Flor de Mar split in two when it sank, scattering its cargo across the seabed. Over time, these riches could have been buried by sediments or swept away by the strong currents. This theory explains why no definitive trace of the ship or its treasure has been found, despite exhaustive searches. Another theory suggests that some of the treasure may have been salvaged in the years after the shipwreck. Local fishermen and divers, familiar with the waters of the Strait of Malacca, could have discovered pieces of the cargo and removed them discreetly. If this happened, it is possible that some of the treasure ended up in private collections or was sold piecemeal, disappearing into the dark world of illicit antiquities trade. This would make locating the treasure virtually impossible, as there would be no official record of its recovery or sale. There are also theories that point to the involvement of Portuguese authorities or rival colonial powers. The Flor de Mar sank during a period of intense competition between European empires, and some speculate that the treasure may have been secretly recovered and used to finance political or military ambitions. Although there is no concrete evidence to support this idea, it is a possibility that adds another layer of intrigue to the story. Modern treasure hunters have brought new technologies and techniques to the search for the Flor de Mar. Advances in sonar, underwater mapping, robotics, and satellite imagery have made it possible to explore areas of the ocean that were previously inaccessible. Some expeditions have claimed to be close to finding the remains of the shipwreck, citing anomalies on the seabed that could be remains of the ship. However, the conditions in the Strait of Malacca, the poor visibility, the strong currents, and a large number of shipwrecks in the area have made these searches extraordinarily difficult. Then there are the more fantastic theories. Some believe that the Flor de Mar is cursed, protected by supernatural forces that ensure that its treasure will never be found. This idea, although lacking scientific basis, has captured the imagination of many and highlights the almost mythical status of the ship and its cargo. The story of the Flor de Mar is more than just a story of lost gold. It represents a crucial moment in the age of discoveries, an era in which European empires were expanding their reach around the world and competing for dominance on the high seas. The loss of the ship was a major setback for Portugal, but it also served as a reminder of the risks and challenges involved in maritime conquest. For treasure hunters, the Flor de Mar is the ultimate prize. Its cargo is believed to be one of the largest treasures ever lost at sea, and its recovery would be a monumental achievement. The search for the ship has inspired countless expeditions, from professional salvage operations to amateur treasure hunts. Each new effort brings the hope of finally solving the mystery, even as the ocean continues to keep its secrets. The Fleur du Mar has also left an indelible mark on maritime archaeology and the study of shipwrecks. The search for the ship has pushed the boundaries of technology and exploration, leading to new discoveries about the seabed and the history of navigation. Although the ship remains elusive, efforts to find it have contributed to our understanding of the past and the techniques needed to study it. From a cultural point of view, the story of the Fleur du Mar has become a symbol of human ambition and the allure of the unknown. It is a reminder of how the ocean, vast and unpredictable, can challenge even the most advanced ships and the most experienced sailors. The ship's legacy is one of both triumph and tragedy, a testament to the heights of human achievement and the humbling power of nature. In recent years, the legend of the Fleur du Mar has inspired books, documentaries, and films that have brought its story to new audiences. The idea of a lost treasure waiting to be discovered continues to captivate the imagination, regardless of whether the ship and its cargo are found or not. The Fleur du Mar will remain one of the sea's most enduring mysteries. The arrival of modern technology has renewed hope that the Fleur du Mar may one day be found. Tools such as side-scan sonar, submersible drones, and magnetometers have revolutionized underwater exploration. Le Mar will remain one of the sea's most enduring mysteries. The arrival of modern technology has renewed hope that the Fleur du Mar will one day be found. Tools such as side-scan sonar, submersible drones, and magnetometers have revolutionized underwater exploration, making it possible to map and search the ocean floor with unprecedented precision. These advances have already led to the discovery of other long-lost shipwrecks, increasing the possibility that the Fleur du Mar will be next. However, the search remains daunting. The Strait of Malacca is one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, and its waters are full of debris and wreckage from centuries of maritime activity. Distinguishing the Fleur du Mar from other shipwrecks is a laborious process that requires meticulous analysis and verification. There is also the question of who would have the right to claim the treasure if it were found. The shipwreck is located in a politically sensitive region, and several countries could lay claim to the ship and its cargo. These legal and logistical challenges add another layer of complexity to an already difficult search. However, despite these obstacles, the allure of the Fleur du Mar remains as strong as ever. The story of the ship continues to inspire adventurers, historians, and dreamers, reminding us that some mysteries are worth investigating even if they are never solved. The Fleur du Mar is more than just a shipwreck. It is a legend, a symbol of the human drive to explore, conquer, and discover the unknown. Story 15. The Mystery of the Devil's Sea. Music. Leaving behind the story of the Fleur du Mar and its lost treasure in the shifting sands of history, we turn our attention to another maritime enigma. This time it is not about a single ship or a legendary treasure, but about an entire region of the ocean that has baffled sailors, scientists, and historians for centuries, known by many names. The Dragon Triangle, Mono Umi in Japanese, or, more commonly, the Devil's Sea, is a place shrouded in mystery, danger, and legend, located in the Pacific Ocean, near the southeastern coast of Japan. The Devil's Sea is often compared to the infamous Bermuda Triangle, but its location and geological characteristics make it a unique and fascinating enigma. It is a place shrouded in mystery, danger, and legend, located in the Pacific Ocean, near the southeastern coast of Japan. The Devil's Sea is often compared to the infamous Bermuda Triangle, but while the Bermuda Triangle is famous for stories of ships and planes disappearing in the Atlantic, the Devil's Sea has its own chilling story. It is a region where ships disappear without a trace. Compasses go haywire, and strange phenomena occur that defy explanation. Is it a natural hot spot for seismic activity, an area of magnetic anomalies, or something far more mysterious? As we explore the history of the Devil's Sea, we will discover stories that seem too strange to be true, but are based on actual events. Immerse yourself in one of the most disturbing mysteries of the ocean. The Devil's Sea, often known as the Dragon Triangle, is located in the Pacific Ocean, south of Tokyo, and extends north of the Philippine Sea. At first glance, it might seem like a normal maritime area, a busy shipping lane, surrounded by lush islands and bordered by one of the world's busiest nations. But beneath its surface lies a reputation that has haunted sailors, fishermen, and explorers for centuries. In Japanese folklore, this region has long been considered a place of supernatural danger. Ancient legends spoke of enormous dragons that emerged from the depths to devour ships and their crews, leaving behind only churning waves and an unsettling silence. Fishermen shared chilling stories of ships venturing into the area and never returning. Maps from the early days of Japanese navigation often mark this region with ominous symbols, a visual warning to stay away. These stories, although steeped in mythology, had a practical purpose: to highlight the very real dangers of navigating this volatile stretch of ocean. But the Devil's Sea was not feared only by ancient sailors. In the modern era, it earned comparisons to the infamous Bermuda Triangle. Like its Atlantic counterpart, the Devil's Sea became known for the strange and unexplained disappearances of ships, planes, and their crews. And while the Bermuda Triangle captures more attention in the West, the Devil's Sea has an even deeper historical significance in Japan and neighboring countries. The dangers of the area are partly attributable to its location. The Devil's Sea is located in the Pacific Ring of Fire, a geologically active area where tectonic plates collide, causing frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The waters are unpredictable, with sudden storms, giant waves, and strong currents that make navigation treacherous even for modern ships. But what sets the Devil's Sea apart is its reputation for strange, almost supernatural phenomena. There have been reports of compasses spinning out of control, lights appearing over the water, and unsettling silences that seem to defy the usual sounds of the sea. These accounts have fueled speculation and fascination for generations. By the mid-20th century, the Devil's Sea had become a subject of international intrigue. Its infamy peaked in the 1950s, when a series of disappearances put the region in the global spotlight. Among them was the mysterious loss of the Kyomaru No. 5, a Japanese research vessel sent to investigate the phenomena that had given the area so much notoriety. This incident, combined with the region's already sinister reputation, cemented the Devil's Sea as one of the most mysterious and dangerous places on Earth. In 1952, the Japanese government decided to confront the mysteries of the Devil's Sea head-on. At that time, the region's reputation for strange disappearances was causing great concern among fishermen, shipping companies, and even the military. Some ships had disappeared without a trace, while others reported strange events, such as sudden equipment failures or bright lights hovering above the water. To address these concerns and separate reality from fiction, the government launched an official expedition to the heart of the Devil's Sea. The Kyomaru No. 5 was chosen for the mission, a state-of-the-art research vessel equipped with advanced instruments to study seismic activity, magnetic anomalies, and underwater currents. The ship's crew included experienced sailors and a team of scientists, all with a mission of discovering the truth about the region's strange phenomena. For Japan, this was more than just a scientific endeavor. It was an opportunity to reclaim a vital shipping lane and restore confidence in the safety of its waters. The mission began with great hope. The Kyomaru No. 5 set sail from Japan and headed south, with its crew eager to collect data and solve the enigma of the Devil's Sea. For the first few days, everything seemed routine. The ship regularly reported on its progress and observations, but as the vessel ventured deeper into the region, things took a darker turn. On September 24, 1952, all contact with the Kyomaru No. 5 was lost. Attempts to communicate with the ship by radio were in vain. Initially, it was thought to be a common problem in the Devil's Sea, where magnetic anomalies were known to interfere with navigation and radio signals. But as hours turned into days, it became clear that something much more serious had occurred. A large-scale search was launched. The Japanese naval and air forces combed the region in search of any trace of the Kyomaru No. 5 or its crew. The operation was one of the largest of its kind, involving ships, planes, and hundreds of personnel. Eventually, search teams discovered fragments of the wreckage floating in the water, confirming that the ship had suffered a disaster, but the exact circumstances of its loss and the fate of its crew remained a mystery. No bodies were recovered, and most of the ship's remains were never found. The disappearance of the Kyomaru No. 5 was a devastating blow not only to the families of the lost crew, but to the entire nation. It reinforced the idea that the Devil's Sea was a place where the usual rules of navigation and survival did not apply. Theories about what had happened to the ship ranged from the plausible to the extraordinary. Some suggested that it had been trapped in a volcanic eruption or sudden underwater earthquake, both common in the region. Others believed that it had been victim to a giant swell, a wall of water that could easily sink even the most robust ship. But there were also more unusual explanations. Some speculated that the Kyomaru No. 5 had encountered something truly supernatural, perhaps a UFO or unknown marine creature. These theories, although they lacked evidence, gained followers among those who believed that the Sea of the Devil was a place with supernatural powers. For the Japanese government, the loss of the Kyomaru No. 5 marked the end of its official investigation about the Sea of the Devil. The region was declared a dangerous maritime zone. In the area, one of the oldest and most legendary disappearances in the Sea of the Devil dates back to the 13th century. During his ambitious attempts to invade Japan, Kwan, Mongol emperor and grandson of Genghis Khan, gathered an enormous fleet of ships in 1274 and, again in 1281, launched invasions in which thousands of ships and tens of thousands of soldiers participated. The second invasion was especially large, with about 4,000 ships crossing the sea towards Japan, but both invasions ended in catastrophe, according to historical accounts. The fleets were lashed by powerful typhoons while they crossed the waters near what is today known as the Sea of the Devil. The storms destroyed a great part of the navy of Kwan, sinking countless ships and drowning thousands of soldiers. The Japanese referred to these storms as kamikaze or divine wind, believing that they were a sign of divine intervention to protect their homeland, while historians agree that the typhoons were probably responsible for the fleet's destruction. Some researchers maintain that the Sea of the Devil could have played a significant role. The volatile climatic patterns of the area, the strong currents, and the seismic activity could have contributed to the disaster. The loss of the fleet of Khan continues to be one of the most dramatic maritime tragedies of history, and is often cited as one of the first examples of the deadly reputation of the Sea of the Devil. In the middle of the 20th century, with the industrialization of Japan and the expansion of its fishing industry, the Sea of the Devil became a fundamental fishing zone, but with the increase of the activity, a disturbing pattern occurred. Fishing boats began to disappear between 1949 and 1953. At least 9 Japanese fishing boats disappeared in the region without leaving a trace of remains or survivors. These disappearances alarmed the population and called the attention of the Japanese government, which finally led to the unfortunate Kyomaru No. expedition. The fishing boats were small and vulnerable to the extreme conditions of the area, but the great number of disappearances in so little time raised questions. Were they simply victims of the natural dangers of the sea, or was there something more sinister at stake? The fishermen who survived dangerous situations in the region reported strange phenomena, such as sudden changes in the weather, bright lights in the sky, and compasses that turned erratically. These accounts added to the growing mystery of the Sea of the Devil and reinforced the belief that it was a place where normal rules did not apply. During the Second World War, the Pacific Ocean was the scene of intense naval activity, and the Sea of the Devil was no exception. In the middle of the chaos of the war, several Japanese and Allied ships disappeared in the region in mysterious circumstances, although many of these losses could be attributed to the war combats. Some accounts defy conventional explanations. The Japanese naval records include reports of warships that encountered strange magnetic anomalies in the Sea of the Devil that caused malfunctions of their navigation equipment. According to what is affirmed, a ship became so disoriented that it returned to its starting point after sailing in circles for days. In another case, an Allied aircraft carrier that was passing through the area captured an unidentified signal, but the source of the signal disappeared without a trace. These incidents, although difficult to verify, add to the popular lore of the Sea of the Devil. They suggest that not even the advanced technology of the war era could face the unpredictable and potentially supernatural forces of the region. Another mysterious disappearance related to the Sea of the Devil is that of the Shino Maru, a Japanese cargo ship that disappeared at the beginning of the 20th century. According to the reports, the Shino Maru was sailing through the area when it disappeared without sending any distress signal. Remains of the shipwreck were never found, nor did survivors appear to tell the story. What makes the Shino Maru especially intriguing is that, according to what is reported, it was transporting a cargo of rare and valuable artifacts, which has unleashed speculations that its disappearance could have been related to a criminal act. Some theorists believe that the ship was attacked by pirates or smugglers, while others suggest that it could have been trapped in a sudden storm or a treacherous swell. Whatever the cause, the Shino Maru continues to be one of the many ships that have disappeared in the Sea of the Devil, leaving only questions. Although the majority of the legends of the Sea of the Devil have to do with ships, there have also been reports of planes that have disappeared in the region. The pilots have described sudden turbulence, strange lights, and interferences in the radio while they were flying through the area. In some cases, the planes have disappeared completely without remains or survivors being found. A notable case occurred in the decade of 1940, when a Japanese reconnaissance plane disappeared during a routine flight over the Sea of the Devil. The last transmission of the plane was confusing and incoherent, suggesting that its crew could have encountered something unusual. Despite the intense searches, no trace of the plane was ever found. The history of disappearances of the Sea of the Devil has left an indelible mark on maritime and aviation history. Although modern science offers plausible explanations for many of these incidents, ranging from extreme meteorological conditions to underwater volcanic activity, the region's reputation as a dangerous and mysterious place endures, with the loss of ships like the Kiara No. 5. The disappearance of fishing boats and the stories of strange phenomena remind us of the vast and unpredictable nature of the ocean. Whether the secrets of the Sea of the Devil originate in science, folklore, or something beyond our understanding, it continues to be a place that captures the imagination and awakens a sense of wonder. History 16. The mystery of the music Ningon. The ocean is vast, and despite all the myths and mysteries that we have explored, there are still places where the unknown remains just below the surface from the strange disappearances of the Sea of the Devil. We pass now to something even more elusive, something that is not only a place, but a presence, a creature so strange that those who claim to have seen it are left questioning their own eyes. It is pale, enormous, and disturbingly similar to a human, but it is not human. It moves silently under the waves and only comes to the surface in the middle of the night or in the frigid waters of Antarctica. It has been sighted by screaming crews, commented in low voices by researchers, and buried in classified reports. Some say that it is an unknown species. Others say that it is something that we should never see. This is the mystery of the Ninjin, an enigma of the marine depths that may be more than a legend. The Southern Ocean is one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. It is a frozen abyss where temperatures drop so much that exposed skin freezes in a matter of minutes. Imposing icebergs float aimlessly, their irregular shapes concealing what lies underneath. Here there are no permanent settlements or cities, only research stations, advanced military posts, and, occasionally, ships that brave the glacial cold. In these waters, the first sightings of the Ninjin were recorded. According to the stories, Japanese whaling crews patrolling Antarctica began to encounter something impossible. At first, they thought it was another iceberg, one of the many that floated in the distance. but as they approached, they realized that it moved. It was not drifting, but swimming. The thing was enormous. Some say it measured more than 30 meters long, but it was not a whale or a fish. It was something, a pale shape similar to a human that slid just below the surface. Some reports describe long, limb-like appendages coming out of the water. Others claim they saw what looked like a face, but as quickly as it appeared, it disappeared, sliding back into the depths as if it had never been there. But those who saw it knew that was not the case, and when these stories reached Japan, the legend of the Ningon began to spread. Unlike most marine legends, the Ningon is not based on ancient folklore, but is a modern mystery. The first rumors began in the early 2000s, when alleged crew members of Japanese government research vessels began talking about strange encounters in Antarctic waters. Their stories reached online forums, where the legend of the Ningon spread rapidly among the public. But this is where things get strange. The Japanese government has never made official comments about it. Some believe it is because the Ningon is not just a myth, but is classified. There are theories that claim that Japanese research bases have found something unusual in the Southern Ocean and that somewhere in the government archives there are photos, recordings, and evidence of the Ningon's existence. But if it is real, what is it? The descriptions vary, but there are common details. Pale, almost translucent skin, enormous size, up to 30 meters long, human shape with what appear to be arms, legs, and even facial features. It moves silently, blending in with the ice before disappearing into the depths. Some believe that it is an unknown species of whale or giant ray, its features distorted by the water and human imagination. Others think that it could be a creature from the depths that only surfaces in exceptional conditions, which would explain why sightings are so scarce. And then there is the darker theory. What if the Ningon is not an animal at all? What if it is something else, something we're not meant to see? There are unconfirmed, yet disturbing, stories about the Japanese army carrying out classified investigations in Antarctica. Some believe that the Ningon could be an unknown biological entity, a life form so strange that governments keep it secret. In secret, others relate it to the USOs, unidentified submerged objects, strange ships that are seen moving at impossible speeds under the surface of the ocean. Could the Ningon be connected to something much bigger, or is it just another legend born from the unknown depths? The mystery of the Ningon is one of the most fascinating modern oceanic enigmas, largely because it lies on the border between cryptozoology, conspiracy, and genuine scientific curiosity. Unlike many creatures of folklore, which have their roots in centuries-old legends, the Ningon is a purely modern mystery, emerging in the internet age and fueled by first-hand accounts, blurry photographs, and rumors of government secrecy. But could there be a logical explanation, or is it one of those cases where reality surpasses fiction? Some researchers believe that the Ningon could be a case of misidentification, that what whalers and researchers have seen in the icy Antarctic waters is nothing more than known marine creatures mistaken for something much stranger. The Southern Ocean is home to some of the largest and most elusive marine species in the world, such as the giant squid, the colossal jellyfish, and the enormous sleeper sharks that patrol the depths. Some marine biologists suggest that, with the right lighting and conditions, these creatures, especially if they surface or move erratically, could create the illusion of a huge humanoid shape. Others point to whales or manta rays, whose pale underside could resemble the Ningon's supposed white and featureless body. Particularly beluga whales, which are especially adapted to Arctic waters, are known for their bulbous heads, flexible bodies, and pale color, although none reach the transparent skin of the Ningon. But this is where things get interesting. Unlike other cryptids, which are often dismissed outright by scientists, the Ningon has a strange aura of mystery around it. Most of the testimonies come from research vessels of the Japanese government, which has led some to speculate that there is classified evidence that something is out there, something worth keeping hidden. This theory is based on reports that certain online discussions about the Ningon have been deleted or hidden, especially in Japanese forums where the alleged first-hand accounts originally appeared. Some have even claimed that Japanese government agencies have discreetly discouraged discussions about the Ningon, leading to speculation that it might not be a cryptid at all, but a real, undocumented species that lurks in the Southern Ocean. Then there's the most conspiratorial angle. Some researchers point out that the Antarctic region is one of the most restricted places on Earth, with various international treaties preventing private exploration. Could it be because something unusual has been found there? According to these theories, the Ningan is not just an animal, but a biological entity so strange that its discovery would challenge our understanding of life on Earth. Some even go so far as to suggest that the Ningan might not be from Earth at all. The connection between the Ningan and the USOs, unidentified submerged objects, has only increased its legend. Reports of huge objects moving quickly under Antarctic waters have fueled speculation that the Ningan is somehow related to something even more mysterious. Some believe that it is an advanced life form yet to be discovered, capable of surviving in conditions that would kill most other creatures. Others suggest that it could be an extraterrestrial biological entity, something that has been here much longer than us, hidden under the waves. It is a theory that may seem far-fetched until you realize how little we really know about the ocean, and therein lies the real mystery. The ocean is the last, truly unexplored frontier on Earth. We have mapped more of the moon's surface than of the marine depths. We have no idea what may lurk in the deepest and darkest parts of the ocean, and the Ningan could be just one of the many strange life forms that we have not yet properly documented. With its pale, humanoid appearance, it takes us back to something primitive, disturbingly familiar, and yet impossibly alien. It is the kind of story that stays with you because it forces you to wonder what else is out there. Despite its relatively recent origins, the legend of a Ningan has become one of the most enduring modern marine mysteries and is compared to legendary creatures such as the Loch Ness Monster, the Kraken, and the Megalodon. However, unlike those creatures, the Nan exists in a space between myth and potential reality, with enough credible testimonies to keep the debate alive. The story has reached popular culture through special Japanese television programs, online documentaries, and even fictional adaptations in anime and manga that explore the mysterious existence of the creature, has also inspired artists and storytellers who describe it as a ghostly being from another world that glides silently through the depths. Some describe it as a guardian of Antarctica, a mysterious entity that watches over the icy wasteland and appears only to those who venture too far into the unknown. But the real question remains, is the Ningan real, or is it a maritime legend fueled by the power of the internet? Until someone captures definitive evidence, video images, biological samples, or indisputable first-hand testimonies, it remains a mystery that will continue to haunt the depths, and perhaps it is better that way, because if something so huge, so silent, and so completely inhuman really exists, perhaps it is better not to know. The Ningan remains one of the strangest mysteries of the depths, a huge, pale entity that lurks under the waves, seen only by a few, but speculated about by many. Is it an unknown species, a case of mistaken identity, or something beyond our understanding? One thing is certain. The more we venture into the ocean, the stranger things become, and the Ningan is just one of the many unexplained giant creatures that could be lurking in the abyss, because the deeper you go, the bigger things seem. This is not just a legend. It is a real biological phenomenon known as gigantism in the deep sea. Giant squids longer than buses, crabs the size of trash cans, and isopods that look like they came from an alien horror movie. It is a mystery of evolution that defies logic. Why do creatures that live in the most extreme environments and with the least food on Earth grow to such enormous sizes? And what else is down there that we haven't yet seen? Let's dive into the strange science of deep-sea gigantism, one of the ocean's strangest and least understood biological mysteries. The ocean is vast, so vast that we have explored more of the surface of the moon than our own deep sea. The deeper we go, the stranger things become. Creatures with glowing skin, translucent bodies, and jaws full of needle-sharp teeth. But there is something else in the depths that defies logic, where the pressure is crushing, where food is scarce, and where life should be small to survive. Instead of shrinking to conserve energy, some creatures grow to monstrous sizes, much larger than their shallow water relatives. Crabs with legs wider than an adult man, squids longer than school buses, isopods the size of domestic cats crawling across the seabed like relics from another era. It's not just a coincidence. It's a phenomenon known as deep-sea gigantism, and scientists have been trying to figure out why it happens for years. Perhaps you have heard of the Japanese spider crab, a terrifying-looking arthropod with a wingspan of more than 12 feet, making it the largest known crab on Earth, or the colossal squid, a giant that dwarfs its more famous cousin, the giant squid, with the largest eyes of any known animal and hooks instead of suckers on its tentacles. And then there is the giant isopod, a deep-sea relative of the pill bug, which crawls across the ocean floor like a prehistoric monster and reaches sizes of more than 60 centimeters long. It doesn't make sense, does it? You would expect creatures living in cold, lightless, and foodless environments to evolve to be small, compact, and energy efficient. However, these deep-sea organisms are enormous. But the real question is, why? Scientists have been debating the reasons for deep-sea gigantism for decades. And while no single answer has been confirmed, there are some prominent theories that could explain this strange evolutionary trend. One idea is that low temperatures slow down metabolism, allowing creatures to grow for much longer before reaching maturity. Basically, the cold acts as a biological time dilator, causing deep-sea animals to grow slowly but steadily over decades, or even centuries. Then there is the theory that larger bodies conserve energy better, a crucial advantage in an environment where food is incredibly scarce. Larger animals can store more energy, move more efficiently, and survive longer between meals. And then there is the arms race between predators and prey in the deep sea. Encounters between predators and prey are rare, so when they occur, the stakes are high. A larger body makes a creature less likely to be eaten and, in some cases, better equipped to take down rare and difficult-to-catch prey. But perhaps the most interesting theory is that the deep sea has fewer evolutionary constraints than surface waters. In shallow waters, organisms have to deal with overcrowded ecosystems, fierce competition, and constant environmental changes. But in the depths, it is a lawless wasteland where the strongest survive by growing bigger, slower, and stranger. The further down you go, the bigger the unknowns become. We have already discovered some giant creatures of the deep, but what about those that remain hidden? For years, there have been rumors that something much bigger lives in the deepest trenches of the ocean. The most famous theory concerns the megalodon. The megalodon was the largest shark that ever existed, a prehistoric predator that could reach 18 meters or more in length. It officially became extinct about 36 million years ago, but some believe that remnants of the species could still be lurking in the depths. The ocean is so vast, and we have explored so little of it, that some researchers argue that it is possible, although unlikely, that a relative of the megalodon still exists in the abyss, hidden in unexplored trenches where food is scarce and few humans venture. In addition, there is the possibility that there are deep-sea creatures that we have not even theorized about yet. Scientists estimate that more than 80% of the ocean remains unexplored. In recent years, completely new species of enormous deep-sea creatures have been discovered, such as the giant siphonophore, a 45-meter-long predator that looks like a living string of jellyfish. If something so big has gone unnoticed until recently, what else is down there? Gigantism in the depths is one of those phenomena that defies expectations and tests our understanding of evolution. It is a reminder that, despite all our advances, the ocean still holds secrets that we have not even begun to discover. What else lurks in the depths? Could there be even larger creatures waiting to be discovered? Could the Ninjin, if it exists, be an example of extreme, deep-sea gigantism? Or is it possible that something even stranger awaits us down there? One thing is certain. The ocean is a world beyond human control, a vast and untamed frontier where evolution follows its own rules. And as long as we keep searching, the deeper we go, the bigger the mysteries become. So what do you think? Is deep-sea gigantism just an evolutionary quirk? Or are there monsters in the depths that we have yet to find? Leave me your opinion in the comments. The mysteries of the ocean are as vast and infinite as the sea itself. From disturbing tales of ghost ships to enigmatic regions like the Devil's Sea, these stories remind us of the power and unpredictability of the world waters. Despite all our technology and exploration, the ocean still holds secrets that defy explanation and whisper to us from the depths. Which of these mysteries has captured your imagination most? What do you think these stories mean? Are they the result of natural forces, or do they hint at something more extraordinary? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into some of the ocean's most puzzling enigmas, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories from the unexplainable. There is much more out there waiting to be discovered, and this is only the beginning. Stay curious, keep learning, and remember that the ocean can give but also take. Until next time, take care.